home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. One more day on a Hump Day Wednesday on 97.3 ESPN FM. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And we are streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. You know, it wasn't enough for Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman to have a press conference yesterday. But they're also making the media rounds. So they've been on the Rich Eisen show. They've been on NFL Network with Mike Garofalo. So we'll get you all the reaction to what was said in the last basically 12 hours. By the way, you might not know that the Flyers are back in action tonight. Sixers have won 2 straight. Joel Embiid made a cameo appearance against the tanking Pacers last night. And on top of all of that, the Phillies are in action. They lead 2-0 in spring training because we're all counting the wins in spring training, right? Get excited. I like Bowman at RBI because that pretty much happens all the time, right? Forgive the condescending attitude from yours truly, Josh Hennig here, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We do have a lot to get to here. A busy show today for my final time filling in for Mike Gill this week on the Bash. Mike McGarry with the Press of Atlantic City joining us at 2:30. Jeff Kerr, Phillies Insider, joins us at 3 p.m. We will be joined by Bob Wischusen at 3:30. Bob will be on the call for this Saturday's Flyers game. Of course, you hear the game on 97.3 ESPN, Flyers versus Bruins. But all the Flyers games this week will be on ESPN platforms. So tonight's Capitals game will be on ESPN+. Tomorrow's Flyers-Rangers game will be on main ESPN. And then Saturday's Flyers-Boston game will be on ABC. And Bob will join us to talk about the return of the NHL from the Olympic break. Geoff Mosher will join us for Football at 4. Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, because you know Jeff wants to talk more about Jeff wants to talk more about the guys who can't stop talking, that being Howie Roseman. And listen, I say that in jest a little bit, and I'll explain why in a minute, because there's a lot of things we got to get into with the Eagles at the top of the show, because we will get to the Sixers and more with Mike McGarry, but also Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers will join us coming up at 5 p.m. Knicks Nuggets at 4:30. And as always, you guys can join the conversation on the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. By the way, shout out to for those who are wondering, I have gotten a plethora of texts about it today. There are some technical issues that we are working through. We hope to have everything completely ironed out as soon as possible on 97.3 ESPN FM. I see you, Jack, Kimmy Cordalis, and others. There's some issues, okay? If you cannot hear on the radio, we do invite you. We have the YouTube stream up at 973 ESPN. You can listen on the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. There's a lot going on. It's out of my control. We do have our people on it, people who are not me, because I cannot be here and at a transmitter site at the same time. So, but they are working on it. And I'll just leave it at that. It will be rectified completely very soon. Again, thanks to everybody who is tuning in, wherever you're tuning in. Thank you for listening to 97.3 ESPN. The issue, by the way, is it's a domino effect of the blizzard situation from Monday, because when I woke up this morning, there was still over 10,000 people without electricity in South Jersey, me being one of them. And apparently, whatever is happening with them restoring power in different parts of South Jersey is having some sort of impact on what is happening at the transmitter site. That's what I know. We move on to the birds, because the last 36 hours have turned into the Eagles feel the need to clarify something that didn't need to be clarified. But apparently they needed to clarify it because the Philadelphia Eagles, for those who don't know, here is the story. So apparently at some point before Sirianni and Howie Roseman left for Indianapolis, they had a non-broadcast conversation between them and reporters, certain local reporters. And Tim McManus was one of the reporters, along with Jeff McLean, who put out quotes from Sirianni and Roseman about A.J. Brown, about the offseason, about the hiring of Sean Mannion, so on and so forth. So, we now have spent the last 24 hours after those reports came out having to hear from them clarifying what they really meant to say. So let us start with Nick Sirianni going on NFL Network last night with Mike Garafolo explaining what he really meant by how he cannot guarantee the future for himself or A.J. Brown.
When you look at the rest of the comments, like, I can't guarantee I'm going to be here tomorrow or be here in this building. So at the end of the day, all seriousness, at the end of the day, I love A.J. Brown. I love the player. I love the person. I love the teammate. And when you get asked a question where it's yes or no, it's like, hey, listen, I can't guarantee anything, but at the end of the day, I love the man, and I love the relationship that we have, all the things that he's done, all the ups and downs that we've had throughout. Man, good player, good teammate, great person.
And this, again, I said this yesterday here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill one more day on 97.3 ESPN. I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again. This is where Sirianni gets himself in trouble. He gets himself in trouble with this whole, I have to say things a certain way. And because of his, shall I call it, obsession with saying things a certain way, he has created a dynamic where he puts his foot in his mouth, he has to course correct, and then circle back around and tell you, well, this is what I really meant. And what Sirianni meant to say, and what he's been trying to re-explain, is that I can't promise you anything, but as he told Kimberly Martin of ESPN, the Eagles want to keep A.J. Brown is really what he meant to say.
He has meant so much to our football team these past 4 years, and like I said, I've always said I'm never hidden my relationship with him and the relationship that I have with him, and it's been awesome going to work with him, going to battle with him over these past 4 years, and we're at a point that we want to keep good players around. Like, it's not at a point. That's what they always want to keep good players around, and so always excited to have him on the football team and look forward to continuing that relationship. I know I want to continue that relationship. I know he wants to continue that relationship, and excited about that.
And listen, I think Sirianni's being sincere. Okay, I am not going to get up here and accuse him or Roseman or the Eagles of anything nefarious. Okay, I don't think there's any point in time where this organization is trying to be, or they're not trying to be disingenuous. They're not trying to mislead anyone. I just think that there is a reality where, for whatever reason, the organization has created an environment where they want to keep telling you they want A.J. Brown here, in part because I think, my interpretation, is that they don't want to basically put dirty laundry out there. They do not want to air out any bad stuff. Which is why Louis Riddick went on NFL Live last night and repeated the same comments he had on NFL Live on SportsCenter on ESPN, explaining that the A.J. Brown rhetoric is getting old from the Philadelphia Eagles.
There's just too much, well, this is what we want. This is what ideally we'd like to have. We're not in the business of getting rid of, quality players, premium top-line players. Well, of course not. We all know that. We all know that you'd like to have good players. But what we all know also is that there is something in terms of fit, chemistry, culture, whatever word you want to put on this, that just is not working here. That it's constantly every week, once you get into the, really the depth of the season with Philadelphia, that this relationship between this player and this organization, this player and the quarterback, this player and the head coach, whatever it is, just seems to always be in a state of turmoil.
It's always in a state of turmoil. And I think that is the absolute key way to put this. The Eagles can say everything they want to put out a good face. But the reality is that everyone involved has created this dynamic where myself, Mike Gill, Billy Schweim, Nick Earnshaw, everyone on 97.3 ESPN, everyone on every ESPN platform, every radio station, every sports platform is asking the question, because of the drama, because of the fiasco, will A.J. Brown be traded? Could he be traded? Why should he be traded? Text in now, 609-403-0973. Would you trade A.J. Brown and why? The reason why this is all happening is because, as Louis Riddick said, there's this drama and they can say whatever they want, but the reality is that unless they're going to get rid of the drama, nothing changes, which is why I love Rich Eisen on the Rich Eisen Show, as heard here on 97.3 ESPN, just straight up ask Howie Roseman, why is there always drama surrounding this Eagles team?
Would you just like to come to work and there's no storylines, there's no phone lines lit? I understand it's part and parcel of Philly.
I don't. What is that like? I don't know what that's like, And I think for us, what I prefer is winning, and winning at a high level, and doing that in a way that changes lives. And so we got to get back to that, and we're not far removed from that. And certainly when you're talking about 11 wins and winning the NFC East. Well, it's not a terrible year, but
That's right.
Our standards are what they are, and we embrace that.
Key words. We want to get back to that. That is a subtle shot by the GM. The executive vice president of the Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman, on the Rich Eisen Show, as heard here on 97.3 ESPN. Little subtle shot by Howie saying, look, we want to get back to the business of football. We want to get back to just focusing on winning. Now, I don't think that means that Howie Roseman is saying we want to get rid of A.J. Brown. We want to unload him. Howie Roseman said at the press conference yesterday, he has said it in numerous interviews, that they are not in the business of trading away great players. That in order to get better, the quote was, if you want to get better, you don't trade away good players. But he also said, I'm keeping the phone lines open, which is why Louis Riddick said last night on SportsCenter he still expects A.J. Brown to not be here. This is former NFL front office executive Louis Riddick's explanation for why, despite all the Eagles' rhetoric, A.J. Brown is gone.
The culture and the fit supersede the talent on the football field and what this man can do from you between the white lines. And even that starts to take a hit because the culture and the fit just isn't what it needs to be. And we saw that play out this year. So to answer your question, I wouldn't bet on him being there this year. I would bet that A.J. Brown is somewhere else.
He would bet that A.J. Brown is somewhere else. And again, he mentions the culture, the winning mentality, the fit, because you just brought in an offensive coordinator who is not number one receiver dependent. What do the Packers do? The Packers are an offense that basically functioned for the last few years without a number one receiver. Sean Mannion was a part of that offensive game planning and offensive execution. You go to the Sean McVay system, the Kyle Shanahan system, the Kevin O'Connell system. While all of those systems have number one, number two targets in their, in the chart of option one, option two, option three, the play calling, it's not hyper dependent on that. To which led Mel Kiper on NFL Live to explain that 2026 is the perfect time to get rid of A.J. Brown because you can replace him. An interesting take from NFL draft guru Mel Kiper on ESPN's NFL Live.
Howie, Roseman, and the Eagles, and that personnel department, they draft exceptionally well. So A.J. Brown is moved. And I know Buffalo, I'm sure Josh Allen says, hey, come on up here with me, right? If that happens where he's moved, the Eagles have a lot of confidence that they can make up for that loss, whether it's a Denzel Boston out of University of Washington in the first round. This is a ton of receivers. You can draft a Chris Bell out of Louisville, maybe in the second, third round. He's a first rounder, but because of the knee injury, he gets pushed down. They can invest in a guy like that. There's a Jordan Tyson drop down, and they move up maybe to get him, the wide receiver out of Arizona State, who has a durability concern. What happens there? So like the Eagles, the personnel department is so strong there. The culture in terms of they know what they can do. That if they do move them, I think they are confident they can fill that void. In this draft, it works out really well because the deepest and strongest position in this draft by miles is wide receiver.
It sounds like where there's smoke, there's fire, to me at least. And the more and more that we have the offseason go on, the more and more speculation there is going to be about the Eagles moving on from A.J. Brown, even though Nick Sirianni went on NFL Network and doubled down on A.J. Brown being an Eagle.
My expectation is that he wants to be here, and we want him here. And, man, again, like I said, Howie said this in an interview not too long ago. It's like it's hard to get good players. We want as many good players as we possibly can have on the team, especially a guy who's a teammate and a person like A.J.
Listen. You may want him. You may not be wanting to trade him. A.J. Brown may want to be here. But the reality is that, as Louis Riddick said, everything that has happened has never been properly addressed. There's never been a point in time where A.J. Brown has faced the music or Nick Sirianni or Howie wrote. For goodness sake, you fired Kevin Patullo. You basically dismissed him. And now we got the coach of the Dolphins, Jeff Hafley, trying to give us some soliloquy about how Kevin Patullo is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, if everything is great, but everything is not great, who's telling the truth and who is lying? And that's why we go back to the comment that was made yesterday on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. You can catch the show live as well on YouTube at 973 ESPN. It's like Steven Bentner chimed in on the Whitehorse RV text board. The Eagles don't want to Nick Castellanos themselves like the Phillies did. And it wasn't just the Phillies, Nick Castellanos himself. And despite some of the idiots who are online trying to tell you otherwise, the reality is that Nick Castellanos did as much damage to his value around the league as the Phillies did. The Phillies never squashed it. There's numerous reports out there that they catered to him even after he became a problem in the locker room. The difference is that A.J. Brown has not done anything to his teammates or to his coaches to turn himself into basically nuclear radiation waste. Nick Castellanos turned himself toxic. A.J. Brown has actually done a good job at rehabilitating his image. He has done a good job at only going on a couple podcasts, posting a very thoughtful 8-9 minute video on social media about mental health. Like, A.J. Brown has done nothing from December to now to damage his value. Nick Castellanos, every time he opened his mouth, damaged his value. The Phillies made it well known, we are moving on from him. We even signed his replacement. The Eagles are doubling down and saying, we love A.J. Brown. We're not in the business of trading players, but if you call us, we'll have a conversation. So Steve Bender's 100% right. Part of the situation with the Eagles is they feel it's absolutely necessary to not do what the Phillies did. And ironically, in a city where the Phillies and the Sixers and the Flyers are having trouble getting the narrative and the messaging and they're all being on the same page, the Eagles continue to be the most cohesive of all the Philly sports teams, even with all the drama, as Rich Eisen pointed out, because the Eagles have a higher goal in mind. Howie Roseman said it on the Rich Eisen show, as you heard us play here on 97.3 ESPN. He said at the press conference yesterday, their goal is to win championships. And while it was a positive for them to win the division 2 straight years, they want and expect more. Does that change the reality that they could trade A.J. Brown? Doesn't change it whatsoever. But the reality is that A.J. Brown is not irreplaceable. No individual, as Sirianni said in the Tim McManus article, quote, no one is irreplaceable. So if that's the concept, you heard Mel Kiper say it. There is a plethora of wide receivers from Denzel Boston in Washington, the Chris Bell at Louisville. There is a total group of guys where if the Eagles wanted to go heavy on wide receiver and O-line, this is the year to do it. And the good news is there is nobody from Doug Peterson's coaching staff to interfere with drafting a wide receiver anymore. Because if those don't remember, the reporting is that Howie Roseman and the front office wanted Justin Jefferson, but Doug Peterson and his coaching staff wanted Jalen Reagor. A lot on the table today here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We will check back in on the text board at 609-403-0973. Mike McGarry of the Press Atlantic City joins us next here on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Only available with TurboTax experts. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's President's Day all month long at Bennett Chevy.
And yeah, there's a lot of President's Day sales out there, but none like Bennett Chevy because Bennett beats them all. Right now, Bennett's selling new Chevys at true GM supplier employee pricing and not a penny more. Plus, you keep all the rebates, saving you as much as 20%. And you'll save even more with available 0% financing. Plus, listen to this. Bennett's paying a minimum $10,000 for any old trade towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. That's 10 grand for the worst clunker. Just imagine what you'll get for a good trade. And at Bennett Chevy, it's different by design. Our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. That means no pressure, no back and forth negotiations, and no waiting around for a manager. Because at Bennett Chevy, we really are different. Get to Bennett Chevy's President's Day sale and save now. Together, let's drive. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
There's just too much, well, this is what we want. This is what ideally we'd like to have. We're not in the business of getting rid of, quality players, premium top-line players. Well, of course not. We all know that. We all know that you'd like to have good players. But what we all know also is that there is something in terms of fit, chemistry, culture, whatever word you want to put on this, that just is not working here. That it's constantly every week, once you get into the, really the depth of the season with Philadelphia, that this relationship between this player and this organization, this player and the quarterback, this player and the head coach, whatever it is, just seems to always be in a state of turmoil.
Well, Louis Riddick is tired of the Eagles' rhetoric on A.J. Brown. Eagles keep doubling down, saying they want to keep A.J. Brown. They're not in the business of trading good players. Well, that's Mike McGarry. Are the Phillies' mistakes with Castellanos part of the reason why the Eagles are going the opposite? Are the Eagles trying to maintain value for A.J. Brown? We'll ask Mike McGarry, the press of Atlantic City, AC Press McGarry on the X platform. He joins us right now on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, is that what's going on? Are the Eagles just trying to not mess this up like the Phillies did with Castellanos?
Well, I think you got two different situations there, first of all. I mean, A.J. Brown is still a very talented player who I'm sure would be attractive to several football teams. If the Eagles wanted to trade him, and if they were exploring trades with him, I think they would find some willing partners. Nick Castellanos was one of the worst position players in all of baseball last season, maybe the worst. So it's no surprise that the market for him has sort of dried up here, and the Phillies were unable to make a trade for him. You know, I think the Eagles, rather, are going to ask around and explore the A.J. Brown situation, but I just don't think they're going to give him away or trade him for free.
They're going to trade him for free. And Howie Roseman, made it very clear that they will listen if someone actually has a legitimate offer. But what I think is interesting, Mike, is that it's like the whole situation, it's like they have to keep clarifying it, right? Sirianni makes these comments. They end up in articles by Jeff McClain, Tim McManus. Then they go to the press conference. And then they got to go do this media tour to re-explain themselves. It's like, Mike, if they would have just been clear about it from the very beginning, they wouldn't have to keep re-explaining themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of awkward how this plays out, and I think it plays out even bigger than it's meant to be because there's really nothing else to talk about right now when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, unless you're a fan of 40-yard dash times at the Combine, which I know some people are fanatical about, Josh, just not me, basically. But I think that's why there's so much attention on it. And
I think we just had Mike McGarry disappear on us here on the phone.
I'm here.
Back?
I hit a wrong button there, John.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It was the ghost of A.J. Brown maybe coming in.
I thought it might have been the ghost of the 10,000 people who are still without electricity in Cape May County.
Could be. Or myself, who is sitting here without internet or cable television for the last 4 or 5 days since the storm hit. So there's only so many DVDs you can pull out of the closet, Josh,
right.
to try to get through the night on. But getting back to A.J. Brown, I just think the situation is kind of escalated to a point where both sides should just take a deep breath and examine what exactly is going on here. How bad can this situation be? The Eagles won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. They won, 11 games this year and another NFC East title. They're projected to be one of the top teams in the NFC next season. I just think sometimes, after a season, it's almost better to take a deep breath and let these things sort of play out and diffuse themselves, and you can make a logical, unemotional decision about the matter, a couple of weeks or months after the season.
And speaking of the season, obviously, we are in the heart of NFL Combine Week. Everybody is talking to somebody and whatnot. What I think is interesting is, Mike, this week with all of what are the Eagles doing and whatnot, I think what's gotten overlooked is that this is going to be a pretty wild month of March with the NFL offseason with all the players who are now, you got teams like the Bears who are basically saying, we are giving permission for one of our starting linebackers to seek a trade, right? Like, you have Mike Evans as a free agent. You have the Giants' new head coach, John Harbaugh, saying that they're going to exhaust all options to be a playoff contender next year. I think we're going to have a very wild month of March.
Yeah, and what's great about football, it all unfolds pretty quickly, right, with the free agent signings. Unlike baseball, where stuff seems to linger for weeks and weeks, the football season free agency, unfolds, very quickly. Sometimes within, moments of that, when you can do the signings, 20, 30 guys sign. I think you're right. It'll be the same way this season with teams like the Giants, like you said, the Chicago Bears, teams, especially in the Bears case, that, got to the playoffs last year, showed some promise, looking to go to that next step. I think the Giants are looking to, emulate the New England Patriots and what Mike Vrabel did up there, which is go from 2, 3, 4 wins to, a Super Bowl appearance. So I definitely think there's a lot of teams in a hurry, and that's the way the league is designed. The league is designed so that, every season, all 30-something teams think they got a shot. There's no such thing as a 4 or 5 year rebuilding plan in the NFL. It's a year-to-year proposition. And one thing the Eagles need to keep in mind is, hey, with Nick Castellanos, it wasn't hard to find a better defensive right fielder than Nick Castellanos, since he was just about the worst defensive right fielder in baseball. And it wasn't hard to find a right-handed hitter who can at least duplicate the numbers that Nick Castellanos put up. It's not like you're putting up, you're not trying to replace a guy who hit 50 home runs last year. So the Phillies have a guy, and Adolis Garcia, they think can be better defensively than Castellanos and do the same, if not more, offensively. The question the Eagles got to ask themselves, if they trade A.J. Brown or they get rid of A.J. Brown, who is catching the football for the Eagles? Who is that big target that Jalen Hurts is going to throw to? A.J. Brown, not as easy to replace as Nick Castellanos.
Definitely not. Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Wednesday edition on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, for somehow, some way, the Sixers have gone from being unable to win games to winning 2 straight. What a concept, right? And did you see Joel Embiid made a cameo appearance last night? That's what I'm going to start calling them, Mike. Joel Embiid, when he plays, I'm going to call them cameo appearances from now on, because last night, I got to be honest with you, if Embiid doesn't play, I don't know if they win the game, honestly, because the rest of the team didn't exactly give the greatest effort when it came to supporting cast again.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's kind of frustrating when you look at even the healthy teams in the NBA, Josh.
Yes.
Right now, you see teams going up and down. I mean, look at the Knicks. They lose last night to Cleveland. They lose to Detroit the other day. But yet they sandwich a dramatic win over Houston in last Saturday night in the middle of those games. And the Sixers are right there, in the dog days of the season now. But teams trying to build momentum for the playoffs, right? And I just think it's almost impossible for a basketball team, Josh, to play under the conditions that the Philadelphia 76ers have to play under, where you don't know sometimes until a half hour before tip-off whether your best player is going to play. I just think that wears on a team. You play one style with Embiid, you play another style without Embiid, you play one style with Paul George, you play another style without Paul George. I don't think the team can develop enough consistency if Embiid is not healthy enough to stay on the court for multiple games in a row. And at the end of the day, that's what it's going to take to make a deep run in the playoffs. And Embiid just can't physically do it, I believe, for 4 series. Could he do it for 1 series? Yeah, we've seen him do it for 1 series, but he always gets hurt at some point in the playoffs and misses time. And I just don't think a basketball team in a sport that depends on chemistry can be at its best if it's never at full strength.
It can't. And it also doesn't help that you don't really have a legitimate rotation coming off the bench, Mike McGarry. I mean, last night, Adem Boner looked really good in 15 minutes. Why do you only play 15 minutes? I don't know. You have these situations where you have a guy playing well. Keep playing him. Stop trying to pigeonhole Andre Drummond and other people into the conversation.
Yeah, well, that's a common complaint of the NBA. They almost decide the rotations before the game, and they and they stick to these rotations on a night in and night out basis. I think one good sign for the Philadelphia 76ers is Quentin Grimes has kind of come back to life over the last few games. We remember, he kind of turned some heads at the end of last season with his performance. I think he's been a disappointment for them this season. Inconsistent, not scoring enough, not playing defense at the level he played last season. But in the last couple of games, he has turned it around a little bit better. So maybe that's another reason for the 76ers to be hopeful. But Josh, however, when you look at the Eastern Conference now, you look at the Boston Celtics, you look at the Detroit Pistons, you look at the Cavaliers with James Harden, you look at the Knicks a little bit with Brunson and Towns. As talented as you think the Sixers might be, I still think talent-wise, even with Embiid out there, they're probably behind those 4 teams.
Mike, let's flip it over to the Phillies. I'm not going to get too excited about one spring training game. You know, Otto Kemp goes yard, and I feel like half social media is in love with Otto Kemp's mustache again. But it is an interesting question, Mike, about the Phillies as they go through spring training. You know, they do have a couple battles. There's no guarantee that Kemp is on the team. Brian De La Cruz could theoretically steal that platoon spot with him and Brandon Marsh in left field. And the Phillies do have to make some interesting decisions about the only thing we know, Mike, 1, 2, 3. In some order, it's Schwarber, Turner, Harper. After that, Rob Thompson says it's open-ended. Do you think we will have any hints about what the lineup will look like before opening day, or do you think that they're going to drag this out to the very last minute?
No, I think you'll know. And again, I think Alec Bohm will be that cleanup hitter at least to start, and then the Phillies might try to ride the hot hand after that going into the season. But Josh, I'd be interested in your opinion about this. Well, I have a column coming out later today at pressofac.com, and I kind of thought through this column while I was shoveling the 24 inches of snow off my driveway, basically, earlier this week. And it just seems to be, I think the Phillies have had a pretty good offseason. I might be the only guy. I don't think Dave Dombrowski has had a bad offseason. I don't have a problem with running it back, basically. This is a team that won 96 games, took the Dodgers to the brink last October before they fell short. But, Josh, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about this. I think something seems a bit off with the Phillies, whether it's the Harper-Dombrowski thing, whether it's some of Harper's comments, overall with, the Castellanos thing. I think in retrospect, the one thing they should have done this offseason is probably gotten rid of Castellanos, in November and not let that situation linger to February. It just seems like the vibes, the karma, and maybe it's the tough playoff losses of the past 3 years, blowing the lead to Arizona in the 2023 NLCS, losing to your rival Mets in 2024, losing to the Dodgers on the Kirkland throwing era in 2025. Maybe that's taken a toll. But it just seems to me, and maybe it's the injury to Wheeler, just the karma of the team seems a bit off. The vibes just don't seem right there. And I just, be interested to see, what do you think about that? Or is that just my sense, basically?
Oh, I don't think it's just your sense. I think that it's something that I've talked about in the past, Mike, which is, the way Harper has talked about this, whether it is, to the media at spring training or when it was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, it's like the way he talks about it and way he talks about it's like they're living in different worlds. It's like Dombrowski lives in one world, Harper lives in another world, and both guys like to say, well, my door's always open. The other guy talked to me, and it feels like a dysfunctional relationship where each person keeps saying, well, if they want to talk to me, they can talk to me, but I'm not talking to them first. And it's like the longer you don't talk to each other. Oh, and by the way, don't forget the story over the weekend, Mike. The whole Bryce Harper went to the Phillies and said, we need another right-handed bat in here. And it's like, what is going on here?
Yeah, it just seems to me that the vibes, and maybe this is why you don't run it back. Maybe this is why you shake it up a little bit.
Right.
And maybe the youth guys in Crawford and Painter and maybe Aiden Miller later in the season will come along and provide some new energy and stuff like that. It just seems to me like, and it's hard to judge. It's hard to put a finger on it. It's not any concrete. It just seems that the feel around the team is a little bit different than it's been in the past. And I think maybe it's the cumulative effect of those 3 crushing defeats and falling short of the team's goal. Maybe they have taken some sort of toll on the team. It'll be fascinating to watch. And having said that, however, I still, if you ask me today, who's going to win the National League East, I would say the Philadelphia Phillies. And are they going to be in the postseason? I would say 110%. but it just seems like something's not right. And I wonder in August, are we going to look back and say to ourselves, they didn't seem right from day one, and they've got to make some changes next off season?
It's a very, very, very fair question. Mike McGarry, the Press of Atlantic City, AC Press McGarry on the X platform. Well, Mike, hopefully Xfinity, Comcast, all the providers get their ducks back in a row, and the world can get back to some normalcy before the weekend for you, okay?
I'll sign up for that, but I'm losing hope up here in Hal, Josh. So stay strong for me down there in Linwood, Summers Point, all right?
We'll do our best. Of course, Mike McGill will be back on Friday here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill one more day as he is scheduled to return tomorrow on the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And yes, we are streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN if you want to jump in to watch the show. Of course, we know that some of you out there, you are maybe having some technical issues. I know for myself, I woke up again with no electricity today, so I just encourage everyone to please do your best, stay strong, and be kind to each other. Don't be like the idiot who was in the Wawa parking lot yesterday who tried to run people over because they were in a hurry to be wherever they had to be, and they got mad because people were a little slow crossing through the parking lot. Like, get over yourself, man. A lot of people going through a lot of stuff right now. This blizzard has been very unkind to a lot of people. Let's try to actually, be good human beings out there. All right, we'll check back on the text board on the other side. 609-403-0973 is the Whitehorse RV text board. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill. One more day here on the Sports Bash. Don't forget, Jeff Kerr is joining us, our Phillies insider, at 3 p.m. Bob Wischusen of ESPN will be calling the Flyers game this Saturday on ABC television. And Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Knicks Nuggets at 4:30. And Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers are all still to come here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from IQ Bar. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at eatiqbar.com/policy/terms of service.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Now you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping when you text RADIO to 64,000. Text RADIO to 64,000 to get your 20% off. That's RADIO to 64,000.
You're listening to The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
.253 on The Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. Not fully sure what you want to do with this information, but the Phillies do lead in spring training 5-2. Yeah, get excited. Phillies are winning a spring training game. I'll never forget. I think it was like a few years ago that like the Pirates were like the best spring training team, and they had like a good start like 2 weeks of the season, and they completely bottom out the rest of the year. Winning games in spring training does not get my juices flowing. Now, if you want to tell me, hey, Otto Kemp hit a home run. Okay, that's cool. Justin Crawford's playing well. Okay, cool. But I'm not getting too high or too low on anything in spring training. It's nice to see baseball. Can we just be happy there's baseball on TV? I don't even care who wins at this point. I don't need to care until when's opening day, like March 28th or whatever it is. That's when I need to care about who wins and loses. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling for Mike Gill. Don't forget, Mike Gill will be back on the Sports Bash starting tomorrow here on 97.3 ESPN. To clarify the tweet he put out there, because I think some people got a little confused. Because Mike, there's an 8-hour travel difference, okay? He's flying back today. He lands at 9 a.m. He's a projected line. So I'm reading from his tweet, okay? This is not me giving away information, okay? He volunteered his information. He says, I'm flying back to the States today. We plan to land at 9 a.m. in Philadelphia. Hope to be on the air at 2 p.m. on 97.3. The part he missed in the tweet was explaining it's 9 a.m. tomorrow. So there's people on X who are confused, thinking that he was going to be on today. I'm sorry to disappoint all of you Mike Gill fans, but you're still stuck with me one more day, filling in on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We are streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN, as well as on the X platform. Coming up, what should we take from Phillies spring training so far? We'll ask Jeff Kerr, our Phillies insider, next on 97.3 ESPN. 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on Hump Day Wednesday on 97.3 ESPN. Filling in for Mike Gill one more day. One more day. You're stuck with me one more day here on 97.3 ESPN. 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Find out why Broadleys is your trusted source for heating, cooling, and plumbing service and installation for generations. And with the blizzard that just came through, you probably need a system check, especially if you lost electricity at some point. Call Broadleys at 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleys.net. Joining us each week on the Sports Bash, Geoff Kerr covers the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies currently are winning in spring training 5-2, but we really don't care who's winning or losing in spring training. We want to see how the guys look, and that's why Geoff Kerr is joining us for another edition here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Geoff, welcome in. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Josh. It's nice to actually get to watch the game instead of following game day and actually hearing from other people how players are doing.
Well, how do we rank this really quick? I just thought of this. So, like, Saturday, we don't actually have the Phillies broadcast. We had, like, the Blue Jays broadcast on NBC Sports Philadelphia. So, like, in the hierarchy of, like, the other team's broadcast, because your team's not broadcasting, the Phillies broadcast Tom McCarthy, because apparently they keep showing him in the outfield during the game here. And then, as you mentioned, just like seeing updates online, like what is like the worst to first for you?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't mind listening to other teams' broadcasts because I always feel like I learn more about the other team when I'm listening to their broadcast. Is what you should be doing, right? Because I watch a ton of MLB TV during the year. Like if the Phillies aren't playing, I'm usually watching the Orioles or I'm watching the Braves that they're playing or I'm watching somebody, right? Because I want to see how players around the league are doing. And I always come back to, you know what? John McCarthy and John Kruk are pretty good.
I think they're better than people realize. I think people of a certain age, I'll say, Geoff, right? I don't want to put it, but people of a certain age still hold against Tom McCarthy that he's not Harry Kalas. And it's like, no one's Harry Kalas. Like, people like act like that, like, you know, Harry Kalas no longer here, so everybody stinks. And it's like, you're right. You listen to other teams, like I watch MLB TV as well. And like some of the other broadcasts, they're rough, man. Like the for example, the Twins broadcast, that is a rough broadcast at times.
Yeah. So when the White Sox were terrible, I would get made fun of because I listened to the White Sox a lot. I think everybody would go, why do you listen to the White Sox? They're like the worst team in baseball. I'm like, well, Jason Benetti's their play-by-play guy. But then he moved to the Tigers, and then I started, like, I like Jason Benetti. I think he's really good. Kevin Brown for the Orioles is really good. I think the Braves still have a carry, right? I'm trying to remember which carry they have now.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Now, Kevin Brown, for those listening to 97.3 ESPN, he does some weekend ESPN radio games as well. So people in our audience are familiar with him. I think Benetti still does some Fox MLB games, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the lead play-by-play guy for NBC Sunday Night Baseball now, which would be
awesome.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think from what I heard, it's Benetti and whoever the color person's going to be, it's going to be one of the local teams' broadcasters. So there's a good chance it could be Benetti and Kruk when the Phillies are home.
Well, that would be weird. Just because having like when what was I think it was the Roku game last year. It was like Kruk and like a couple other people, and like you could tell Kruk was like completely out of his element. He was just like, I don't have my typical banter friends over here. Whereas the other broadcast that I think was on, was it Amazon or maybe it was Peacock, where it was him and Kevin Franson for the Nationals game. And like you tell, like Kruk is such a cute creature comfort. Like he needs to be in there with someone he's familiar with.
Yeah, he does. And look, Kruk's done the Sunday Night Baseball thing. He did with Dan Schulman for years. So I have a feeling he'd go well with Benetti, but would they go with him or would they go with Ruben or Ben Davis in that case? That's another curveball to it. Like, would John even want to do it?
Ruben is very good when he's been asked to switch to the national stuff. Like I've heard him on ESPN radio here for Sunday Night Baseball. I've heard him on other broadcasts. I think Ruben does a good job at being able to flip that switch from national to local.
One thing I really like about Ruben is he's done it all, right? He was a player, he was a coach, he was a GM. He was the jack of all trades. I know he had an interesting career, but look, the guy's done it all. And like you said, Josh, he's done the national stuff. He's done local stuff. He knows how to do it. Like I respect when Ruben talks, I respect his opinion. Even if I don't agree with it, I'm like, well, he forgets more than I know about this game.
Yeah, and I think Ruben also does it in a way that's, not like offensive. Like there are some people when they talk about sports, they're just so condescending, and I just got no patience for them. Whereas like Ruben, it's like he might have an opinion, I might not agree with it, but he doesn't say it in a way that makes you feel like he's telling you you're stupid.
Exactly, right? He's talking to you like you're 5, but in a good way, right? Because sometimes you need it to be explained like that. And I think that's always the mark of someone who probably is the smartest guy in the room, but he could talk to everybody and everybody understands what he's doing. So, yeah, I do like when Ruben's on. I've grown accustomed to him. Even when Ben Davis is on, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's on. Like, it's weird. I'm not too hypercritical of broadcasters, I guess. Maybe it's because I'm focusing on other stuff. And I do see these guys a lot.
All right, let's get back to the actual Phillies on the field. Jeff Kerr joining us here at Jeff Kerr PHL on the X platform. Go check out his Substack for more of your Phillies coverage. Just jump on the X platform. You see the link right there and pinned to the top there. On the field, I think it was interesting that Otto Kemp hit a home run today, Jeff, because there is a conversation to be had that Otto Kemp, there's no guarantee he is the platoon, right? There is no guarantee that he's going to be the guy platooning with Marsh. There is a chance that Brian De La Cruz could sweep in and take that job, right?
I would like to think there's competition there, but I feel like the competition was over in October when it came to Otto Kemp. It seemed like Otto Kemp was going to play somewhere on this team, and whether he was going to be the full-time third baseman or he was going to rotate, fill in between second and third, or, be the platoon guy in the outfield, they had a plan for him. And they knew what I'm trying to word this the best way I can here. They knew what I know since, June. The guy had a broken kneecap, and he was battling through that, and it couldn't come out, because if it did come out, I think we all knew his season would have been over, right? And I don't think Otto wanted that, and I don't think they wanted that. So I always looked at it as they like what he was able to give them with all the circumstances with the kneecap and the shoulder last year. I think that they think he's going to be the player that he was in Lehigh when he got called up, that hit for power, had a high OPS, and could play every position for him, pretty much every position. Like, I was so impressed when he went to first base last year. I don't think he ever played first base in the minors. And I asked Rob Thompson about it, and he goes, well, that's how you go to Bobby Dickerson school. And, we both put out a smirk. And, it's good that they're trying to get him as many positions as they can. I think Otto Kemp is going to play a huge role in what this team does this year. We talk about this infusion of youth with Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter, and Nate Mill. Otto Kemp is a part of that.
He definitely is. I just think that he's looked at differently because of the fact that he's not one of the big 3 shiny objects, right? He's the car in the lot that's not the Lamborghini. He's not the fancy sports car. He's just a dependable Honda Odyssey. He gets the job done.
I was going to go Civic there, Josh.
Well, I was watching Deadpool and Wolverine last night, so I had Honda Odyssey and Kias on my mind. So
that's the funniest movie I've seen this decade, Deadpool and Wolverine. I can't get enough of that movie.
So, but yeah, so to me, Honda Odyssey, Kia Sportage, whatever one you want to use, to me, he's just a dependable vehicle, and I think that for people, nobody wants a dependable vehicle, right? It's like Fast and Furious when Paul Walker's trying to speed race the car at the daycare pickup, right? For the kid. It's like nobody really wants the minivan, but you need the minivan. And maybe you don't want Otto Kemp, but you need Otto Kemp.
He gets the ultimate compliment from Rob Thompson, from multiple people in that front line. He's a baseball player.
Right.
Isn't that the compliment you want? Like, he's a baseball player. You ask him to do something, he's going to do it. And I actually think Otto's going to have a really good year. I think he knows what he needs to do to succeed at this level. Am I saying he's going to be 300 here? Of course not. But I think he's going to be a good player for them this year. And I think he's really going to help them. If him and Brandon Marsh can give you a combined 800 to 850 OPS, you can live with that platoon in left field.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the other thing with Kemp is that maybe because he's not the shiny new prospect, there's a little bit of he wasn't supposed to be here. He had to work his way to earn his keep. So, maybe for a guy like him, there's a little bit of extra, he knows what it takes to be here kind of thing, Geoff?
I would agree. And look, this guy he questioned himself. He questioned if he was any good 2 years ago when he got called up to Lehigh for a cup of coffee and he didn't hit like how he thought he was going to hit. He hit at every level. Jersey Shore, Clearwater, Reading, comes up to Lehigh, struggles a bit. And he told me, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I was that type of player or not. And he worked his butt off to become that 300 hitter in Lehigh and be the Paul Owens Award winner for them. And look, he was going to hit 30 home runs and have 1,000 OPS for Lehigh last year if he stayed there all year. And he earned his trip to the majors. And, it was all of a sudden one night in June, he's in Charlotte and all of a sudden he gets a call. Hey, guess what? You're coming up. And I think it was a surreal moment for him. And I don't think he really had time to get his feet wet because when he did, he broke his kneecap. So I think he put in the work. I think he knows what he has to do now. He's seen Major League pitching. He said, hey, look, if I can do this, if I can hold my own with everything that happened to me last year, I'd like to see what I can do when I'm healthy. This is a big year for him.
By the way, what speaking of the outfield, I forgot to mention this. On another media platform, Phillies President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski made the comment that apparently Aiden Miller told the Phillies, I can play outfield too. It's almost turning with Aiden Miller where no matter who you talk to about him or what platform he personally goes on, it almost sounds like Aiden Miller is almost being like, if you need me to be Ben Zobrist, I'll be Ben Zobrist. He's really turning into that dude who just is like, you need me to play there? I'll figure it out.
I mean, look, Kemp never played left field until last year, and I thought his ball tracking was terrible, and his footwork was terrible, and he found a way to get it done. I mean, I guess Aiden could get it done. I think they want him to be the long-term shortstop, but if you need him this year, Bryce Harper's publicly said, we need him this year. He said on a broadcast. So, he's getting looks at third. He's going to get looks at second, I was told. I think even Dave Dombrowski said that today, that he's going to get a look at second. And I wouldn't be shocked if he went to the outfield. I just think that's a big transition, but I will say this with the Phillies. I don't think they should rush him. If he hits those first 2 months like Otto Kemp did, then you bring him up. If not, it's fine. It's going to take Aiden Miller a while. It always takes Aiden Miller a while at every level, and then he just goes crazy. And I mean crazy as in hits 1,000 OPS and has power. I mean, the kid's a real deal. He's still only 21 years old, so you can be patient with him.
Jeff Kerr joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. At Jeff Kerr PHL for all of your Phillies coverage. Speaking of what Harper said, Harper, the whole report about him this weekend going to the Phillies, saying we need more right-handed bats. It's such a weird dynamic with Harper and what he wants versus what he says and what he doesn't say. And are you starting to get to the point with Harper where it's almost like, hey, Bryce, can you just stop talking and play baseball?
I think Bryce knows that. I think this is.
You sure?
This is probably the time where this is the time where he talks, and then you only hear much of him until he just decides, hey, yeah, I'm going to go up today and talk. Yeah, look, I don't mind him speaking. It's better than him not speaking, I guess. I kind of like how he's taking the leadership role of the team, but this is a big year for him. He needs to not be the player he was last year because I honestly liked when he did the non-elite stuff and wore the shirt. I think his reasoning was, bull that, someone gave me a shirt. No, come on, Bryce. You knew exactly what you were doing. And that's fine, right? the great ones always find a way to get motivated, even if like, look at Michael Jordan in The Last Dance. Look at the little things that got him motivated or got him upset. I think Bryce needs to take that to heart, and I think he is. And are him and Dombrowski good? I'm hearing they are, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think the thing with Harper is that, I think that he's in some ways maybe just expressing what nobody else either wants to say or is maybe afraid to say, right? I think that if he's willing to stay in that lane, I'm fine with it. It's just like you said, like, don't give us some goofy, oh, they handed me a T-shirt. Like, no, just own it. Just be like, you know what? I'm a spiteful you-know-what. It doesn't matter if Dombrowski said it or not. I just wanted to find some motivation this offseason. And you know what? If that means that he goes out there and hits 35 homers, has 100 RBIs, and bats .290, and is an MVP candidate, then you know what, Bryce? Keep doing your thing.
Yeah. And look, he knew he had a bad season by his standards. He knew he wasn't elite last year, and the playoffs just added on to it, right? The playoffs are almost your second life. You could have an okay or good season, but it's not good by your standards. But if you hit in the playoffs, it kind of makes up for it. And if you win a championship, well, that didn't happen. He overswung. He was trying to do too. I honestly think Bryce Harper's biggest issue was last season, especially last year. When there was a runner on base, he tried to play hero ball instead of being Bryce Harper. And I think that hurt him more than it helped him. And hopefully he knows, like, hey, I don't have to swing at the first pitch all the time unless there's someone grooves it down the middle, or I don't have to violently swing all the time. I just need to be me because I know I can do this. We'll see. I mean, they need Bryce Harper to be Bryce Harper this season. No doubt about
it. We've talked about the young players a lot. Jeff, about, Crawford, about Miller, about Painter. But let me ask you about a guy who's not a young player. Kyle Schwarber had a historic year last year. MVP runner-up. What is a realistic expectation for him? A lot of times guys have a big year. It's hard for them to put the same production back-to-back years.
If he had 50 home runs again this year, I think you take that 10 times out of 10, 11 times out of 10. I expect him to hit 40. I think he's going to be around 240, 40 home runs, 900 OPS. And would you take that, Josh?
I mean, I think I'd be happy with it as long as the rest of the lineup does their job too. I think part of the problem I had last year, Jeff, was the fact that, basically Schwarber was the only consistent guy in the lineup last year. Yep. I don't need Schwarber to hit 6 home runs if Harper and Bohm and the other guys do their job. Like, if you told me that Garcia comes in here and has a really good year, Harper has a, Harper-esque type year, and Schwarber has a good year, I think this lineup looks a lot better than it did last year.
Yeah, and then Trey does what he did last year, right? I thought Trey had a good year last year. He was the batting champion, and they asked him to be a leadoff hitter. Will that change this year? I don't think so. I think that's what they want him to be, but what if Justin Crawford hits at the bottom of the order? Do you want Trey to be a singles hitter then?
If those singles turn into RBIs.
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at it. I think that's what they want. They want Bryson Stott, Justin Crawford, whoever it is down there to get on base. So that way when you turn the lineup over, you got your big three. Everybody's making a big deal about it's Turner, Harper, Schwarber. I'm okay with those three going back to back if you can get some runs out of them.
Speaking of people making a big deal about things, I'm not trying to be the guy who reads too much into social media, but is it just me? Are the Phillies really trying to make Kyle Backus a thing before he ever makes the roster? Like, I see these reels and these things about him, and it's like the Phillies social media is trying to tell you, look at this guy, look at this Kyle Backus, it's so cool. And it's like, wow, I don't remember them ever pushing a guy on social media who had made the roster yet before Kyle Backus.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I did my initial 26-man projection, I had Backus making it because I think they like his delivery. I think they like what they can do for him. And look, this bullpen's already deep, right? You already got Jonathan Bolin, you got this offseason.
Can't forget about Bolin. I mean, Dombrowski mentions his name every time he gets a chance to.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, he traded Matt Strom for him. Matt Strom was a problem child, I guess. I don't think he was, but they make it look like he was with the whole, the whole pitching, the PFP and all that stuff. It's, I think they're going to miss Matt Strom a little bit in the clubhouse because I think he spoke up for a lot of the younger guys, and there aren't a lot of younger guys, but I think Matt Strom was vocal, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I always thought he did a very passive-aggressive way. Like, he didn't upset anybody, but when he talks, you listen. So I think they're going to miss that.
They're definitely going to miss that, and my working assumption is that, I feel like that's why the priority was to bring back Schwarber because of what he means to that locker room. So it's like if you're letting Strom and Castellanos go, you want to make sure that the guys that you're bringing in are going to be substantive, right?
Yeah, I would agree. So look, JT's a leader in that clubhouse, Schwarber's a leader in that clubhouse, and that's a pretty tight room. Even with last year, whatever the Castellanos reports were, they were still tight. And I think they still had the ultimate goal of winning a World Series. And I get it. It's not like everything's perfect. Nothing's ever perfect in a 26-man clubhouse or a 53-man locker room. But look, the majority of that team, they're all pretty close. And I don't want to say this is the end of the road, but I think they know that the window is closing.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is now or never. You're 100% right. Jeff Kerr, give him a follow on the X platform at Jeff Kerr PHL for all your Phillies coverage. Go get on the Substack for all the extensive coverage. He joins us each week here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff, great stuff today.
Sounds great, Josh. By the way, I think I hype up Phillies prospects more than the Phillies hype their own players.
It's a tie. Depends on which prospect it is.
Yeah, well, if it's Alex McFarland, I've been on that train for about a year and a half now. So
I was gonna say, I think that was like a couple years ago. You were on the Alex McFarland train. So
yeah, there are a couple of these guys like I see in Clearwater and Jersey Shore, and I'm like, oh, they can be a player. They can be a player. Like Ryan Kirkring, I remember the first time I saw him pitch, I heard about him in Jersey Shore, and he came up to Reading. It was like his first appearance for Reading, and Jose Alvarado was doing a rehab assignment. That was one of the reasons why I came up there to talk to Jose. I was like, man, Ryan might be better than him. I don't think that's true these days, but the way Orion was coming up, look, he's still only 24. It's a lot of these prospects like him, Otto Kemp, Aiden Miller. They're gonna hit. Phillies do. How can I word it? They have a better farm system than I think people give them credit for.
By the way, someone mentioned you need to get on the Christmas tree.
That's not a Christmas tree. That's a Disney tree. If you look at the ornaments closely, you zoom in, it's all Disney stuff. There's no lights on that.
All right. Well, Jeff in Ocean City thought it was a Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's decorative. You know what it is? I got these ornaments perfect, and I don't want to take them down. By the way,
once you got it set up, you're like, it's there, it's set.
Yeah, it's there, it's set. I'll have to do it next year. I even got houses in the back from like a Disney Village. I'm like, no, set. I'm done.
Favorite Disney movie?
Oh man, that's a good one. There's a lot. I quote The Emperor's New Groove a lot, so maybe that's
okay.
The one.
All right.
There's a lot of quotable lines in that, Josh.
There is, yeah.
Especially when he fires Yzma.
I'm a Mulan guy, so
I do love Mulan. Mulan's very good. They had a lot of bangers in the 90s. Lion King, Hunchback, Hercules, Mulan, Tarzan, Emperor's New Groove, the Pixar movie. Toy Story's really good too. I'm a big Toy Story guy.
I'm an original Toy Story guy. I felt like each one after that kind of like was like a notch down. You know what I mean?
Oh, 2 was very good. I like 2.
It's fine.
Did you see the trailer for the 5th one yet?
I have not.
Oh, I don't like how they separate Woody and Buzz, but they're back together. So it's
one of those things where it's like if I don't have something else to watch and maybe it's on Disney Plus, I might watch it. How about that?
See, I've seen all 4 in the movie. I've seen all 4 in the theaters, so I gotta see the. I'm actually excited for this Hoppers movie that's coming out. That's a Pixar film. It looks good.
Well, listen, when Mike Gill comes back, you won't be able to talk movies with him. So
No. Mike's not I don't even think Mike's a Disney guy.
Mike hasn't been to a movie in theater since like the late 90s. So,
but he goes to Egypt and Jordan.
Correct.
Oh man. See, we live different lives.
Geoff, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds great. Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We'll make the switch coming up next. Phillies are in spring training. Flyers return from the Olympic break. We will talk with Bob Wischusen. He'll be on the call for Flyers versus Bruins this Saturday on ABC and at 3 p.m. right here on your home for the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers, 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
3:31, Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I mean, any excuse I have to play this music, I just got it, right? Well, I'm partly playing also because you can catch the Flyers multiple times this week across ESPN platforms. Thursday, the Flyers versus the Rangers in primetime at 8 p.m. on ESPN. And then this Saturday, you can catch Bob Wischusen on the call for Flyers and Bruins, 3 p.m. on ABC. And Bob Wischusen is back with us as we are celebrating the NHL's return from the Olympic break. Bob is not just the Team USA one. It's that the entire NHL is finally back in action, and it starts tonight. Bob, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm bored. It's been a while.
Well, tell me then. You said you're bored. Is there a storyline that now that the NHL is back that you are looking forward to the most?
You know, it was the Penguins. Whether or not they could hang on, whether or not they could, I mean, better than hang on. They've been one of the best teams in the league. Like, could they actually, at the trade deadline, add some pieces? They have a ton of draft capital and give the Crosby, Malkin, Letang trio a legit run at it, maybe their last run at it. But now Crosby's out for a month. So I guess it's a different kind of intrigue. Now I'm wondering, when he comes back, where will they be? And, like, how do they approach the trade deadline knowing he's out? So, to me, I think they're the most intriguing team in the league because of those legends and whether or not they actually have a team they think is good enough if they add to it to try and take a run.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, for those who might not have been paying attention to the NHL season up until, the end of the football season, they might not realize that some of the biggest names in, for example, the Eastern Conference, they're not where you expect them to be, right? You got a team in Florida, they are right now very far out of the playoff hunt. A team like the Bruins, they're hanging on for dear life in the wild card. And frankly, Bob, if you would have told me that the Sabres would be a wild card team, I would have told you need to stop drinking.
Yeah, I mean, the Sabres were the hottest team in the league for like a 2-month stretch. They didn't lose. So they played themselves from the bottom of the conference into not even a wild card spot for a while, but into, a top 3 spot in their division for a while. There have been a couple of teams in the East specifically, Tampa, Buffalo, Boston there for a while, Montreal, but those teams didn't lose for a long time, and it really tightened the race up. And you're right. Now the Bruins are hanging on to that last playoff spot. If the playoffs were to start tomorrow, they would have the last spot in the East. And I guess you'd probably go down as far as the Flyers and Panthers for the teams that mathematically are kind of still in it. The Devils and Rangers, I think, are cooked. The Flyers and Panthers might be cooked too. I don't know. They have a lot of teams to jump over, but the Bruins are still in must-win mode. There's no question.
Absolutely. And, of course, this Saturday you will be on the call for the Flyers versus the Bruins, 3 p.m. on ABC. You mentioned the Flyers. It's interesting because early in the season there was a kind of a vibe, Bob, where here in the Philadelphia area we were like, hey, maybe the Flyers could break their playoff list streak, right? And then things started going downhill. It was like they ran out of juice, they ran out of energy. And then all this talk about, Taka versus Mishkov. Is it real? Is it not? And now we're coming out of the break, and it seems like everything is kumbaya. What is the national perspective on the Flyers here?
I feel as if every moment that they spend legitimately either in a playoff spot or in the playoff race, they're even at best, exceeding expectations, if not, they have no firepower. They are clearly a team that's still building for the future. I don't think they're going to add at the trade deadline. Michkov has been an inconsistent disappointment this year. There's no question. The goaltending situation has been a mess. Sam Ersson has been, unfortunately, one of the worst regularly used goalies in the NHL. But they certainly still have some pieces on their team but they're still 2 or 3 years away. Like, I look at where they are in the standings in a completely different world than I look, say, at like the Capitals or, you mentioned the Panthers being back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And the Flyers are right there with those teams.
Right.
Barely hanging on in the playoff race, but their organization is in a totally different place than those teams. And, I've seen a lot of positives out of, the kind of the young talent that they have. Trevor Zegras has found a brand new career, and he's still a baby in the league. He has the better part of his career out in front of him. Christian Dvorak is a nice player. I mean, they do some nice young players, but they still need time, and they need Michkov to become much more like what that rookie class is becoming, and he hasn't joined the party, right? Like, he has watched, the Celebrinis, the guys that are in kind of his age group, right? The super high draft picks over the last 2 or 3 years, Connor Bedard, so on and so forth. Now, the Islanders have obviously a generational talent, it seems, at defense. I Michkov needs to show that he can be one of those guys, and he has not done that yet. So to me, that's probably the biggest disappointment.
ESPN play-by-play broadcaster Bob Wischusen joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, this Saturday, Flyers and Bruins on ABC. Bob will be on the call. Of course, you can also hear the game right here on your home for Flyers hockey in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. Bob, you mentioned about the whole Michkov thing, because I think it's interesting that you say that there are some positives. In this area, there's a kind of a vibe where it's like we've been waiting for 5-6 years now to get back to the playoffs. And Bob, I keep reminding people that you can't treat the current administration, the current contingent of Keith Jones and Danny Briere, and blame them for what Chuck Fletcher did. I feel like people kind of forget that there was a different GM, a different group of people running this organization the last time they made the postseason to where they are now.
Yeah, look, I do in the NFL, I do the Jets on the radio and have been around the Jets for 30 years, saying the same thing to Jet fans. And, of course, I've said it to them, 2 or 3 cycles over, that there's a reason that the current regime is the current regime. It's because the past regime didn't get it done. So the current regime, they should have the right to enact their plan. And they should have the ability to go through their rebuild and draft and develop and bring guys along. You're right. Like, you can't necessarily ask Keith Jones, Briere to go out and splash money all over the place on the free agent market and grab a bunch of 30-year-old guys, 35-year-old guys to come in to try to win right now because the previous regime didn't get it done. And I get it. When you are, and I've said this to Jets fans over and over again, fans that have been through multiple rebuilds want to hear the word rebuild the way that, like, a 3-year-old wants to see broccoli on his dinner plate, right? Like, you want cookies and milk, like, you want the ice cream, you want dessert, you want all the treats, and you want to enjoy what the other organizations that are winning and going to the playoffs are enjoying. But it doesn't change the fact that, like, the broccoli, you have to eat it and it's good for you. And it doesn't change the fact that if you are right now a Flyer fan understanding that a rebuild is necessary, it's because the previous rebuilds didn't work. That's why this regime's here. So, yes, I agree. Like, the Jets right now have a general manager in Darren Muji that traded 2 of their best defensive players last year to load up to get 5 first-round draft picks in the next 2 drafts. Now, that's really exciting to talk about in April, but by definition, that means they're probably going to be a bad team during the season because they've got all this draft capital, but they're going to be super young. Rookies don't often win in any sport, immediately. Same thing for the Flyers. The Flyers, with their draft capital, with the Michkovs, with, the other young talent that they have to give that time to develop. And these guys deserve the right to draft and develop, but it doesn't, I'm sure, make a Flyer fan feel any better to sit there and have to hear, okay, Like, how many rebuilds are we supposed to go through before we can finally expect one to work?
Yeah, and it also goes as far back as when they, the Ron Hextall era, when they took Nolan Patrick, and then you have Cale McCarr go a couple picks later, and you have a lot of Flyer fans, bemoaning that. There's been numerous instances where previous administrations passed up one guy for another guy, and you're right. It's not fun to talk about it in February and March, especially with the trade deadline around the corner. And Bob, you just mentioned the fact that they're probably not going to be active at the deadline. Is there a team or teams that you are the most curious about at the deadline?
Well, Pittsburgh, to me, is the most curious. They have, over the next, I think, 3 years, I think they've got 15 picks in the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years. I might not be getting those numbers exactly right, but it's something akin to that. They have more draft capital than any team in the NHL. And they've got Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson, all at the end of their careers. So what do? Do you trade those picks? Are you aggressive? Do you go to a team like the Flyers and see if they're willing to give up a Konechny, right? A Sanheim? Are you going to give them even more of their future to get what you need, so you give those legends a chance to take a swipe at it and make a run? Or do you say, oh, all right, Sidney's out for a month. We might not even make the playoffs. Do we really want to abandon what we thought was going to be our long-term plan? Or maybe you kind of split the baby, right? Maybe you try and trade some of the draft capital, but hold onto enough of it so that you still feel like you're really not mortgaging your future. So I would say of any of the teams right now that are, have big decisions to make, I think Pittsburgh is in a very interesting spot. And, I think Tampa Bay will probably look to add. Montreal's super young, so they're good, and they are a contender in the East. So I would say they probably will be active as well. But at least of the Eastern Conference teams, very interested to see what Pittsburgh decides to do, and what Philadelphia decides to do, and what the Rangers decide to do with some of the guys that they still have.
Well,
right? I'm almost stunned that Mika Zibanejad is still on the team. I mean, the way he played in the Olympics and in the seasons he's had, to me, Mika Zibanejad is a $15 stock right now, selling at potentially $30 for the Rangers if they could find a buyer for him, and if he would be willing to go somewhere.
Yeah, Zibanejad to me is one of the more interesting names because you just mentioned the Rangers. They're basically they're not just at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They have zero chance of basically moving up the Eastern Conference. And they got all these. I mean, they already moved on from Panarin. Zibanejad seems like the most likely name. And by the way, for the Flyers, another name off the Olympics. Ristolainen played good in the Olympics. There's always teams that need defensemen.
Yes, there's no doubt. And I think, if I remember right, talking with a couple of people around Pittsburgh specifically, I think a right-handed D was something that they were going to potentially be in the market for. So the Flyers have a couple of candidates, to maybe at least make a call. I mean, right-handed defensemen are not easy to find. And, defensemen overall aren't easy to find. Top-pair defensemen are very tough to find. Letang got banged up, so they're wondering, I think, would adding a veteran depth defenseman that could be second power play unit or top penalty kill unit, play 20 minutes a night. Would that be worth giving up some of the draft capital to go get?
And as you mentioned, the Olympics, they tend to amplify these guys' values sometimes. You got to take advantage of it if you're some of these teams. And he's Bob Wischusen. He'll be on the call this Saturday, Flyers versus Bruins on ABC at 3 p.m. And he joined us right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And by the way, Bob, I do want to congratulate you re-signing your multi-year deal with ESPN. So it's definitely cool to still have you a part of the ESPN roster calling games, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, having hockey back at ESPN has been a blast.
All right, Bob, enjoy the game on Saturday.
Thanks.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. See, Alan, yes, we will have the Flyers game tonight and Saturday right here on your home for Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers versus Caps tonight on 97.3 ESPN at 7 p.m. The Flyers and Rangers game will be on our sister station, Rock 104.1, tomorrow at 8 p.m. And then Flyers versus Bruins, which Bob Wischusen will be on the call for ABC. That will be Saturday at 3 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, you can listen to all Flyer games streaming on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app as well. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill on a Hump Day Wednesday edition on 97.3 ESPN. Our Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. What host of Unsportsmanlike has found the next Sam Darnold? We'll tell you about that coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GAME to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GAME for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GAME for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
If we're looking at all the available candidates to be the next Sam Darnold, I think Kyler Murray has the best case. You're talking about a guy just like Sam Darnold that was a top draft pick. Obviously, he was number 1 overall. Darnold was number 3. You expected him to be a transcendent talent. You've seen flashes of it, but it didn't pan out in the place that he was drafted. And they have that thing that stuck to them. Sam Darnold had, I'm seeing ghosts. Kyler Murray has the independent study clause. They have that thing, the label, and they have the opportunity in their next destination to change the narrative. Sam Darnold did it briefly in San Francisco, certainly in Minnesota, and then exclamation point with the Seahawks. Kyler Murray has a lot of that same themes around him that Sam Darnold did.
Michelle Smallman this morning on Sportsville, I heard 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern on 97.3 ESPN. Who's the next Sam Darnold? It's actually a fascinating question to ask. The problem with her answer is, I think there's a huge difference between guy not doing enough preparation during the week and a guy who's not being coached up well enough. Kyler Murray had Cliff Kingsbury. He had a high-level coach. And the combination of injuries and basically the Cardinals not winning football games led to Kingsbury being ran out of town. Sam Darnold didn't have a legitimate coach until he got to San Francisco as a backup at the 49ers. I think Kyler's situation is very different than Darnold because he did have a level of success and then he dropped off. I don't know if Kyler Murray can be a Sam Darnold because I don't think that he was a guy who is fallen to rock bottom yet. Sam Darnold hit rock bottom. Sam Darnold was labeled bust. Kyler Murray is still reclamation project available. To me, if I'm picking a guy who is a Sam Darnold-esque story, a guy who has been a complete fail, who can still maybe turn into something, to me, it's Mac Jones. Mac Jones, to me, feels more of like a guy who, if he gets with the right team, like if somebody comes along and says, you know what, I saw what happened to Sam Darnold after he left San Francisco, what happens to Mac Jones after he leaves San Francisco? I think Mac Jones is more of that candidate because, like Sam Darnold, Mac Jones showed you just enough to make you think he could do it. Kyler Murray had an elite coach. And now he's kind of like in the middle of the road. Teams don't always want the middle of the road guy, or maybe they do. We'll find out. On Sports Blake, heard 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern here on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4 next.
My expectation is that he wants to be here, and we want him here. And, man, again, like I said, Howie said this in an interview not too long ago. It's like it's hard to get good players. We want as many good players as we possibly can have on the team, especially a guy who's a teammate and a person like AJ.
That was Nick Sirianni last night on NFL Network attempting to clarify previous comments. Remember, he couldn't guarantee anyone's future. Well, now he says, well, it's not about guaranteeing. It's that we love to have him back. We want him here. The Eagles continue to speak at NFL Combine Week to get more into the aftermath of Nick Sirianni speaking. What a concept, right? We got to react. Do we even have to react? We'll ask Geoff Mosher. He joins us for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, and Philly voice. Geoff Mosher joins us now on 97.3 ESPN. Geoff, only in Philadelphia, right, do we have somebody make one comment and then need to go and clarify said comment? How you doing?
That seems to be happening with all the Philadelphia teams, right? Whether it's a reporter or whether it's a coach. Yeah, it's been going on.
But it is interesting that, and by the way, that's your buddy Garofalo who had to sit down with Sirianni last night on NFL Network, and he straight up asked him, he's like, look, would you like to clarify this? And Sirianni's like, yeah, I'll clarify it, But it was an interesting point that Sirianni basically stating what Adam Schefter called the obvious, Geoff Mosher, that no one's future is guaranteed, turned into, look what Sirianni said about his job at A.J. Brown. And it's like, now you have these guys having to come full circle and clarify that no one was saying that Sirianni is on the hot seat. No one was saying that A.J. Brown is gone tomorrow. Like, it is pretty impressive that, one innocuous comment got turned into a firestorm.
Okay, so just so that I'm caught up, Josh, because, I do a lot at Philly Voice where it's just not Eagle stuff. Is there something Nick Sirianni said that's making the rounds besides the fact that A.J. Brown, I think, you always want to have good players? Was there some self-incriminating line that I might have missed?
So there was the article that came from Tim McManus the morning of Howie and Nick speaking,
right?
And then Jeff McClain did the follow-up on his stuff, basically taking that I can't guarantee quote and basically it was amplified.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Just making sure nothing had happened in the last 20 minutes. So let's circle it back to A.J. Brown. Okay. The personnel chief, Howie Roseman, and the head coach, Nick Sirianni, are now speaking in lockstep, right? They're now almost, you have a situation where Nick is parroting Howie because Howie gets the questions first, and he is the face of the franchise in terms of building the roster, of course, by position and experience. So when you have a situation where Howie's words are carefully cultivated, right, and Nick starts to parrot it, well, I think to me that speaks to the obviousness of the situation, which is that, yes, if there's a good offer for A.J. Brown, the team will trade him. for a variety of reasons that we've kind of beaten to death over the last 2 weeks. But just take out the name A.J. Brown and insert like Jalen Hurts or Jalen Carter, right? And see if you'd get the same response. Oh, well, we're trying to keep as many good players as we have. It's hard to find good players. No. If somebody said, hey, are you trading one of those two guys right now? They'd be like, no. It would be definitive, and it would almost be met with a little bit of like a look like, why would you even ask that? So the Eagles are doing the right thing, by the way. They're being very diplomatic about it. They're making it sound as if, hey, it's hard to get good players and we want AJ, and the new offensive coordinator, has got him in the plans. Sure, because there's always the chance that he could come back. But it's not like they're bending over backwards to tell you without a doubt, unequivocally, AJ Brown would be an Eagle, and it's even silly to ask that question.
Well, it's also interesting the fact that, you look at some other people look at it like myself, which is, and I'm not saying the Eagles actually care about these things, but the perception is that in a city where the Phillies imploded the ability to unload a toxic piece in Nick Castellanos, the Eagles are doing everything they can to maintain the pristine value if somebody calls with the right offer for A.J. Brown.
Yeah, right. That's what you do, and I think I heard you saying this, and I couldn't agree with you more about the difference between how Nick Castellanos kind of butchered his trade value and A.J. Brown, who has, I know he made, I guess the New England Patriots podcast thing made a lot of headlines. I didn't.
Yeah, but see, can I jump in really quick? That's an example of the internet being a bunch of bleeps, because if you actually watch and suffer through the 40 minutes, which I did and Nick Earnshaw did, we all lost time out of our lives and brain cells watching that stupid podcast. A.J. Brown did not say what people are making it out to be. It was a tongue-in-cheek joke, because for those who don't know, A.J. Brown grew up being a Julian Edelman fan. That's one of the reasons why he wears number 11. And so the whole joke was Edelman saying, we're all Patriots, right? And then A.J. Brown making a wink at Edelman. And then he immediately said, I'm kidding. And A.J. Brown even said, I know the internet is now going to pick this up.
Yeah.
So, there was a part of it that was very, very innocuous, but the internet is the internet, and there are idiots online.
Yeah. I mean, listen, A.J. Brown, when he wants to make a statement talking to people on the internet, he makes it pretty clear. Like during the season, when he was playing the video games and, calling things a bleep show and all that.
Right.
I also happen to watch in full the live podcast he did with Micah Parsons and Bryce Young at the Super Bowl. And I thought, again, he was more of a bystander in a lot of those conversations than an active contributor. So, yeah, we have a lot of, this will all happen very quickly, I imagine, because the draft just sneaks up on you just like that. And free agency is important. So we'll see. We'll see what happens and see what the offer is. But, as Adam Kaplan and I discussed on our recent, podcast, we're doing free agency previews, both from an Eagles lens and an NFL lens. We looked at the wide receiver class, and there's more teams. You and I could sit here and name 7 teams right now, right? That if they had one wide receiver like A.J. Brown, you could envision them in the Super Bowl, right? Some of them are real obvious, like the Bills, bang, right? Okay, right then and there. The Texans, there are a couple of the Chargers. You could probably get to 6 or 7. You can't find 6 or 7 A.J. Browns on the open market. You can find Mike Evans. And you can find, trying to think of the other name that really jumped out. I mean, there's maybe
Tyreek Hill.
No, only not correct, because right now you have no idea what kind of shape he's in or when he's going to be able to play. If you, in 1 second, I'll think of it. But the point I was trying to make was, it's just not a very deep class of those kind of wide receivers, game changers, right? Who are going to make it so much of a difference where you could say that guy could put me in the Super Bowl. And that's why there should be a market for A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and probably whatever team gets Mike Evans, that's probably the same type of team that would be interested in an A.J. Brown, because you could argue that Evans and A.J. Brown, while they're not the same age, the position they play on the field is very similar in most offenses.
Yes. True X big physical receiver, right? Correct. Correct. Wan'Dale Robinson's another good one. He's a slot. He's a totally different type of receiver, but he's good enough with the year that he's coming off in a bad Giants offense to say, hey, that guy can probably will sign a multi-year deal with a lot of money attached to it.
The other thing that was interesting that came out of the Sirianni, Howie, Roseman speaking to the media yesterday, at least for me, Geoff, was the admission that, Sirianni and Roseman, as you mentioned, they're both in lockstep here, talking about the hiring of Sean Mannion, about saying how, they went and interviewed a lot of people, and that, part of what stood out about Mannion compared to some of the other guys was the fact that Mannion was a guy who basically came into the meeting with like literal examples of like, this is what I would do in these situations with the offense. And Howie and Nick basically admitted that that was one of the separators of him versus some of the other guys.
Yep. It's an interesting situation. I get when you don't get the guys you exactly want, and we know Mike McDaniel and Dable would have been guys that they want. Then you got to go with an extensive search and a guy that you may have to take a chance on. And, Nick said pretty clearly that he went into it thinking he was going to need, and this is almost like a Captain Obvious statement, went into it thinking like, I'm going to have to get a guy who's got some experience play calling. And I think the argument is still there to be made that he should have, but nonetheless, you want to get the best guy that you can. And in that course of interviews, 17 of them, I believe he said. Yep. And then you add the extra follow-ups, right? That Sean Mannion stood out the most, which speaks to Sean's presence and command to be able to stand out. And I think that, it could be a very good hire. I think it's still a risk. I think that they can say what they want, but I'm sure that they wish that more proven guys would have given them the opportunity to open, just to at least talk to them. But that's not what happened. And it'll be interesting to see what happens this coming year.
I mean, the only name for me, at least, Geoff, that I was surprised that didn't, get involved in the conversation for me, and I can't speak for him, but for me, was Frank Reich, because he's now the offensive coordinator of the Jets. And that felt like a very natural marriage where basically it's like, Nick Foles and Kurt Warner and other guys have said that basically Sirianni runs Frank Reich's offense. This is not like Sirianni didn't come up with this offense on his own, that if you're going to keep running the Sirianni style, then why not go to due to the offense we do the defense, right? Go get the original.
Well, I mean, I think the whole point was to not have Nick Sirianni's offense, right? I mean, yes, Jim Bob Cooter got a You're My Friend interview. And yes, there were some guys like, for example, LSU, Charlie Weiss Jr., who you're not exactly sure how to characterize the offense because he's never coached at the NFL level. But I would say 95%, of at least the interviews we knew about were West Coast offense, but the Shanahan McVay style modernized West Coast offense. And, where Nick Sirianni and Frank is interesting too, because he's had different offenses that he's worked under, but he's not really been a play caller in a whole lot of places. And where he has been, he hasn't been that good. So I imagined that wouldn't have gone over with the guys that you really got to please, which are Jeffrey and Howie, just leaning back into a coaching buddy or someone who's been here and there, as opposed to someone who is going to radically redesign and refurbish what you do.
Geoff Mosher joining us for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Don't forget all of his work at Philly Voice. And, of course, Josh Hennig filling it for Mike Gill. One more day here on 97.3 ESPN. We can confirm. Now, by the way, Geoff, as you know, you only can confirm because someone put it on social media. So once it's on social media, then it's real.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Mike Gill put it on social media, so I've been feeling at liberty to put it out to the wide world of sports.
Okay. Well, if Mike Gill put it on the internet, then it has to be either true or it happened in Egypt and he was, under the influence.
Although I will say, did you know it's an 8-hour difference?
I didn't, because I've wanted to text him a few times and I've thought to myself, I'm not sure if he's sleeping or if it's like 6 a.m. or what, or if it's at night. And so I just decided not to.
Yeah.
Instead of going that, I don't know, Joshua, it would take 3 seconds to talk into my Google search and say, what time is it in Egypt right now? I was like, forget it. He's not that important.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't hear from him at all for like almost 3 weeks. And he was apparently texting other people for about 3 weeks. Okay. So apparently I'm not very important and he's not very important to you. And everybody's just very unimportant right now.
Well, I feel like I maybe have seen a little pep in your step over the last 3 weeks. So maybe there's some cause and effect to that. You don't have the boss up your butt all day,
I am not going to act like having Mike Gill here would not make my life easier right now. I'm just going to put it that way. Okay.
All right. That's fair. That's a very diplomatic statement of you.
No, it's just a realistic statement. It's the fact that the blizzard has basically whooped my butt and I've been living without electricity. So it's like, my life has been very chaotic.
Yes.
And it's like, it would have been nice if Mike Gill would have been here where I could have been like, you got this, right?
Of course. Of course he would be gone when there would be 3 feet of snow on the ground. It's just the way it works.
As one person, you say, let's get it back to the Eagles.
Yeah.
So the other comment that was made yesterday by Howie at the media gathering was, he did make an emphasis, Geoff, about 2 positions on defense. They are going to try to get some bodies more in here, that being defensive line and cornerback. And I think it's interesting because they tried to address cornerback last year, remember? And it didn't really go as they had hoped, right? They brought in Adoree Jackson. They wanted to try out Keely Ringo. They traded for Jacorian Bennett. And, Jackson was serviceable, but he wasn't, he wasn't that great. So, what can the Eagles learn from last year's collection that didn't work out to maybe do better this year at corner?
See, I look at it differently, Josh, in that, yes, it didn't work out, quote unquote, the way they wanted it to, but I also think it didn't hit nearly the rock bottom that people expected it to with Adoree Jackson. I mean, you're correct. I mean, all throughout the season, all Howie Roseman did was try to get his hands on other corners not named Adoree Jackson, right? But at the end of the day, they didn't lose because of Adoree Jackson. I mean, the defense certainly didn't do its part against the Niners. I think that they were asked to carry the load quite a bit, but you didn't come out of that game saying, man, Adoree Jackson cost them the game. I mean, in fact, the big play that they had in the first quarter to Jennings, I think, was Quinyon Mitchell having a rare mess up in coverage, if I'm not mistaken. You remember that play on the left side where there was a pass and Mitchell slipped a little bit and then Jennings broke free for like a 65-yarder or something like that. I'm pretty sure that was on Quinyon. So I think the lesson is to continue to have options, to continue to give yourself guys. I mean, it's hard. They're not going to – I don't see them using a first-round pick, and I don't see them going heavy spending in free agency on a corner because you have Quinyon Mitchell and you have what's his face? You have Cooper DeJean, and you're in base defense 30% of the time, 25% of the time. So why are you going to go put a lot of investment into a guy who's not even on the field for the entire time? Okay, so I just think that maybe they keep taking swings of the bat, as you say, or throwing darts and try. If you get someone who's 20% better than Adoree Jackson, then your defense overall is a little bit better. And by the end of the year, I think we all thought the Eagles' defense was pretty good.
A couple more comments from Howie Roseman yesterday when we hit on with Geoff Mosher today on Football at 4 on 97.3 ESPN. It's Geoff P. Mosher on the X platform, to give him a follow there for all of his Eagles coverage with ITB and with Philly Voice.
P for
Howie,
perfection.
What's
to
that?
Let you know. P for perfection, to let you know.
Oh, okay. Me, not
that
perfect.
was not impressive. Okay.
I mean, it would probably land better if it wasn't me on the other side of the microphone, because Mike Gill probably had some sort of pithy response.
Oh, he would have ripped me. No, he would have ripped me two you know what's if I had said that to him.
Yeah, meanwhile, I just whistle and wave it. I'm just like, whatever.
Exactly.
It's definitely a reflection of our personalities, right?
For sure.
But back to Howie, back to the Eagles. Howie mentioned 2 players specifically he was asked about yesterday. I thought was very interesting, his answers. Let's start with the first one, Jalen Phillips. Howie mentioned that he's a perfect fit for Fangio's system, about how he's a great fit in the locker room. It really sounded like the Eagles are going to prioritize trying to bring back Jalen Phillips. And frankly, Geoff, I'm glad they are, because outside of Jalix Hunt in 3 games for Jalen Phillips, their pass rush was basically Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, and nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he fits the defense. They're going to prioritize it for sure, Josh. The only thing is, and again, when you're going to look at the edge rushers in free agency, and the first thing you're going to say is, uh-oh, because if you're as good as Jalen Phillips is, that there's a lot of teams with money to spend, man. There's a lot of teams who are ready to reset the market at certain positions, and edge rusher is one of them. So at some point, the Eagles have to – they got to be able to do this under good terms for both them and the player. It can't just be one of those, we're going to pay you $15 million per year more. They can't go all Patriots Milton Williams on Jalen Phillips, right? So that's what's going to make this sort of a fascinating negotiation. I think some of it will have to deal with Jalen Phillips. Do you want to be the richest edge in the NFL and maybe go play for the Raiders, or do you want to be a really, really rich edge in the NFL and have a chance to win a Super Bowl? It may come down to that.
Well, I think it does help that he's not the number one name on edge rusher. I think that does at least help in the Eagles' favor, right? It's the fact that the number one name would be Trey Hendrickson. And I feel pretty comfortable saying that Hendrickson is probably going to get something substantial on the market.
He is. It's an interesting one. Hendrickson, I believe, is older.
Yes.
You can check me on that.
I think he's 3 years older. Let me double check.
Yeah. So he's 3 years older. So I don't know that the type of contracts both of them are going to get are going to be similar. Now, Phillips has the injury history that'll work against him. So he'll sort of be treated like an older player because he'll be treated like a player with an injury history. But again, all it takes is a couple of teams to say, I don't care. I saw his last 6 games with the Eagles. He looked very healthy, looked productive. He can come to our team and dominate. So, obviously he's more aligned to get a longer-term money, which is a longer-term deal, which will come with a lot of money.
By the way, 4 years. It's almost a 4-year difference. Phillips is going to be turning 27 soon, and Hendrickson is 31.
Yeah. So I think that does make – if you want to say that Hendrickson's the number one free agent edge because of his production and what he's accomplished, sure, but that's not always the criteria. A couple of years ago, Adam and I went to the Combine, and we were talking about who was the guard. Was it maybe Sayamalu, right? And we heard from a couple of different teams that he was their number one guard on the board, but he didn't get number one. In fact, he got a 1-year deal, right, from the Steelers, if you recall.
From the Steelers.
Right, from the Steelers, because he had a significant injury history. So he wasn't treated like the number one guy because of that. So we'll have to see how it works with Hendrickson and with Phillips' injury history.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that here the list I'm looking at is Trey Hendrickson, it's Adofe Owea, it's Kwity Paye, it's Joey Bosa, it's Joseph Asai, it's Chason from the Patriots, Leonard Floyd. Wow, he's still hanging around.
How about Chason? He had a really nice bounce back year. I mean, that'll be very interesting to see if the Patriots can bring him back at a good number.
By the way, Chason and Phillips are almost the exact same age. How about that?
Yeah. Just took Chason a longer time to get to where he's at.
Oh, absolutely. He was a very slow to get there. But that was also because of the defense he was drafted into, and we all know how that functions as well. Look at Brandon Graham. Look at his career, right?
Good point.
Finally, before I let you go, the Dallas Goedert comment I wanted to ask you about. I asked Kaplan about a little bit yesterday, but I want to ask you as well. Howie Roseman said, hey, we are going to be talking with Dallas Goedert's agent in the next few days. And then he expressed their interest to bring him back, which, of course, they're interested to bring him back. He had 11 touchdowns last year. Yeah. But I thought the little nugget there was we are going to be talking to him right here in Indianapolis in the next few days. I thought that little nugget from Howie was interesting.
Spoiler alert, they're talking to every single agent in the next few days in Indianapolis. I mean, that's just what happens, Josh. I mean, I get why that would stick out to you, but the reality is they're going to talk to every agent, and having a conversation doesn't matter. It's the numbers that are exchanged in the conversation that matter. So I think this one's really interesting. To me, this one's 50-50, right? Because this is a player who, again, when healthy, is very talented, and he's not that old either, right? I mean, he's got good years left. So you could absolutely see a competitive team saying, hey, if I get Dallas Goedert on a 3-year deal for whatever, pretty good money, he's really going to help me. And that could price the Eagles out. But you could also see teams saying, drafts full of tight ends this year. Last year's draft had a bunch of tight ends. He's got an injury history. I'll give him a 2-year deal with maybe just a little money in year 2 because I'm worried about it. And in that case, the Eagles could do the same thing, match it, and bring him back. So that one is a total chess match. It'll be very, very interesting. And as we say with every position free agency, all it takes is one team to go where others won't.
Yeah, especially when it comes to a player who is at kind of a weird spot in his career, right? He had an injury history, and then last year was the first time he's been legitimately healthy for most of the year.
Right. And in some cases, it's about contracts. If someone signs Dallas Goedert and guarantees money in year 3 of a 3-year deal, which I don't know if that'll happen, but I'm just hypothetically saying that's going to scare off a lot of teams, and it might even scare off the Eagles. I can't be, we can't guarantee you money 3 years down the road, with all the games that you've missed, and we just made you or asked you to take a pay cut that you agreed to. So, but teams that can do that are teams that are well under the cap because they've stunk for a while and they're trying to build back up and they're willing to play that leverage game.
All right, he is Geoff P. Mosher. P stands for perfect, not Mr. Perfect over there.
Oh, that wouldn't have been bad. No, not Leaping Lanny Poffo either. The P is not for Poffo.
No. I'm not Mr. Perfect.
You're a wrestling guy. You remember Leaping Lanny, right? That was back in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah. I'm old enough to know, but not old enough to know. It's kind of like when
All right, but the P is the first letter for my middle name, and it is synonymous with a legendary wrestler from my era. Could you guess?
Let me have some time to think about it because we do got to go to commercial break.
All right, how about I just tell you?
All right. Well, how about you text me? Let me try to guess on text. I'll figure it out.
I'll let you guess, and you can let me know.
Like sometimes, Mike Gill gets mad at me because he'll put a thing out there and be like, oh, we're doing can you guess? And I just blurt it out. He'll be like, you were supposed to give the audience time to guess. And I'll be like, oh, my bad. Yeah.
I knew I was up against it though. And I didn't want to cause a major cliffhanger.
Jeff, I'll talk to you later.
See you, buddy.
Josh Hennig filling in for the aforementioned Mike Gill. Mike will be back tomorrow here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And as always, Football 4 is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatics Sportsbook, the place to be for every season. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC fights, and how about that big college basketball tournament in March? Yes, go to the Fanatics Sportsbook, go to Ocean, go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Coming up on the other side, it's another edition of Nick's Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw joins me next on 97.3 ESPN. 4:34 here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. Typically, you would see him on the stream, but Nick Earnshaw is en route to another place at another time. And he's joining us on the phone line for today's edition of Nick's Nuggets here on 97.3 ESPN. Nick, I hope you are driving safely and not dangerously.
No, I'm driving safely. The others on the road, however, may not be driving too safely. You always got to watch out for you. It's always everybody else, Josh. That's usually what I've been told growing up, right? It's always everyone else. It's not you for the most part.
So what do you got for today's Nuggets from parts unknown traveling to assignment?
Well, I'm on the road right now, but I don't know if you guys saw this earlier with Joel Embiid and the shin issue. According to the Inquirer today, coming out with Joel Embiid, this was not just a shin issue that he's missed time for, okay? The Sixers are taking a cautious approach with everything. However, he felt a sensation that went way down his entire right leg, and he compared it to an electric shock. So not only do we have to worry about Joel Embiid's health throughout the majority of the season, what else could pop up from his injuries? This doesn't seem too good, Josh. If I'm not mistaken, that they put it out as, oh, it's just a shin injury. He was feeling a little sensation. Like, I ran track. I had shin splints a couple of times when I ran track in college and in high school. But this sounds like a little bit more of a problem here, Josh. What was your take on this report from the Inquirer?
I mean, I have a few different thoughts on it, but my initial thought is, can we just stop with the whole putting out misinformation and just can we just turn a new page and start treating the Joel Embiid injuries and to be honest about them? Or if you don't want to be honest about it, just say lower body injury. Like I'm tired of this misdirect, this person said this and this person said that, but wait, there's like I'm tired of the whole run around the shell game, Nick. For me, I look at it like, listen, just be honest about Joel Embiid, or just tell us all to go away, and we will. Like, I don't understand why this has to be an Avril Lavigne song and be so complicated.
No, I totally agree. Like, it's always misdirection, or it's always a mystery with what the injury is. Just say, like, hey, something flared up. This is what it is. They're going to manage it. And, I got to give credit. Joel's getting out there. He's doing everything he can to play. And, he said after the game, he said, quote, I feel good enough to go out there and play to the point where I think I have a little bit of confidence that I'm going to be fine and hope for the best. That was Joel Embiid's quote. Now, hoping for the best is, oh, great. Just send him out there and just pray he doesn't get hurt again. But, I mean, this has been the Sixers' era with Joel. It's always something new. Something flares up. But if you got to keep the guy out, just keep the guy out. But be honest about what the injury is. Like, he had a sensation going through his entire leg, essentially.
I'm going to go with the question of this. Because having a sensation go through your leg could be a lot of different things. It could be a pinched nerve. It could be an issue with your sciatica. It could be, is it the whole leg? Is it just the calf? Like, this report in and of itself doesn't make anything better. It just makes things more confusing, does it not?
Yeah, no. Well, here's the exact quote. While away during the All-Star break, Joel Embiid began to feel a sensation all the way down his right leg that he compared to an electric shock. Electric shock. I don't like that terminology. That doesn't sound too good. If I have an electric shock going through my entire leg, I mean, Billy Schwein could tell you all about it after his knee surgery. He's got shocks all the time. That doesn't sound too good.
Definitely not good. I will We'll say that much.
So then I ask the question to you, Josh, and even the audience as well. Do you sit him out a couple more games here and just hopefully he can rest it up a little bit and they can win a few games without him, and just kind of stay afloat? And when George gets back, they have the whole band back together for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like when it comes to a guy like Embiid, that I called it earlier, he had a cameo last night. I think the organization, we've talked about this before, Nick Earnshaw doing this for Nick Nuggets here on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash. I think the organization and everyone needs to start treating it as if Joel Embiid plays, it's cool. But you got to start planning and building around Maxey and VJ. And if Embiid shows up, it's like, a Marvel movie where one of your favorite characters just happens to be in the movie.
It's like if Iron Man returns. That's essentially what it is. If Robert Downey Jr. comes back as Iron Man, it's like, great, this is awesome. It adds to everything. But you also have to look to the future of the Avengers here, all right? Now, are the six of the Avengers? I wouldn't go that far. But you get my point. I'm just kind of going off your comparison. Yeah, it's like, all right, we have him. He's going to elevate this team. If they don't have him, they're really not the same exact squad.
Not your best analogy, by the way.
Oh, come on. I thought it was pretty decent.
Robert Downey Jr. is attorney for the next Avengers movie, but he's the villain.
Yeah, I know I know the whole thing, but you know what I mean. If he were to return as Iron Man, people would go nuts, and the Avengers are all together, the team's together.
Well, let's move on to the next nugget then, because we kind of fizzled on the end there.
All right, here we go. Nugget number 2. I don't know if you saw on the Pat McAfee show, the Suns owner, Matt Asheba, calling out the other owners for tanking. He said, quote, "Tanking is a loser mentality. It's an embarrassment, it's horrible, and it's bad for the NBA." Now, this comes on the heels of Lauri Markkanen getting more MRIs, missing more time for the Jazz, and the Jazz have been the biggest culprits of this entire situation for the most part this season. But the NBA, it seems like every day, Josh, we're talking about something new, that something's going wrong, and now you have the Suns owner calling out the other owners for tanking. Can the NBA get this right ever?
Well, they can get it right if they stopped being, so, stubborn about it. And you're right. Ishbia, doing this call out is kind of weird because, Ishbia, his own team, is kind of like the one who is semi going to benefit from this because of the fact that he's not overtly tanking, so his team is not being punished the way the Jazz or the Pacers will be. So I feel like he's kind of sitting there. He's kind of being able to, be the bystander in the crowd telling the pro golfer why he didn't make the putt, right? So, what has Ishbia ever won? What has he ever done? He's the new guy at the table. He's one of him and Ryan Smith are two of the newest owners in the league. So, listen, I don't think he's wrong, but at the same time, the reason why people tank is because their incentive for tanking. If you take away the incentive for tanking, no one tanks anymore. Until you remove the incentive, this is what you get. And by the way, Nick, there are ways to fix it. There are solutions. There are ideas. But the problem is that the league is run by people who are not very imaginative. Adam Silver and the owners of this league are not individuals who are elite outside the box thinkers.
No, you're totally right. And with tanking in the NBA, I mean, you saw, like the Sixers, I know, the trust the process, Sam Hinkie, I was on board with that. I know Mike Gill was as well. But the other teams, they saw success with it. Sixers, I mean, they became a competitor, so it pretty much worked. It could have went better in other ways. There was other things surrounding it, and without the NBA stepping in. But you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, they did it right. And other teams were like, I want to do that. I want to break it all down, build it back up, and then be a contender again. So there's incentives to do that. Like, look at what the Thunder did. They are the prime example of how to do it properly. And Sam Presti figured it out. He took the idea of Sam Hinkie and ran with it, and they won a title out of it, and they have picks on picks on picks because of it.
I'll also say that don't forget, there's a level of luck that goes to this too, okay? It's not as simple as you tank, you get the high draft pick. Like, you still need to get the pick correct. There's numerous times that guys who've been picked in the top 5 have not panned out. You know, there were 2 point guards, picked ahead of Curry years ago. No one's talking about Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio all these years later. So, to me, it's not as simple as tank, get the pick. You got to get the pick right, too. And I think that that's the other side of this coin, and that is for basketball fans, right? Not just, Philadelphia sports fans, but for fans of whatever your basketball team is. The fact that the basketball there's almost no guarantee, Nick, that if you draft the guy high, it's going to pan out. It's not like a sport like football where if you get a left tackle in the top 5, 95% of the time the guy's going to be a stud, right? If you draft a defensive pass rusher in the top 10, 95% of the time it's going to pay off. In the NBA, it's like, well, one team took Lonzo Ball, one team took Jaylen Brown, or like one team took Jahlil Okafor, another team took Porzingis. It's like there's no guarantee with the tanking, which makes the tanking worse.
Sure, you have to hit on your picks too. Like, you have to draft well. So I'm totally with you. It's not 100% foolproof, right? So if the NBA wants to stop all these teams from tanking, like, there's solutions to do this. So I mean, it's going to continue to happen because teams are going to think we're going to hit on every draft pick. We're going to be just like the Thunder, and that's not always the case. You also have to have good scouting departments. There's a lot that goes into it. Look at the Sixers. They didn't hit on every pick. Ben Simmons, failure. Markelle Fultz, failure. Jahlil Okafor, failure. Nerlens Noel turned into a decent role player for a couple of years there after the Sixers. Like, the Sixers missed a lot on players. But teams around the league, they see the Thunder, they're like, oh, we could do that. We'll just hit every pick. We'll just stack all these draft picks. We'll hit some, we won't hit some. But then that continues to make teams non-competitive for a couple of years. And the league's got to find a way to stop that if they don't want a ton of teams doing it and trying to get out of purgatory by breaking it all down and building it back up.
But the Sixers example actually makes it even worse because of the fact that Ben Simmons was not an overt bust. Ben Simmons was a guy who got to a certain point and stopped caring. He stopped trying. He stopped evolving and developing. He was a 3-time All-Star. So like now you have teams who say, well, if I could get Ben Simmons, I'm not doing that bad, right? So now you have teams who, the examples of the busts used to be, Darko Milicic, okay? Now it's, well, Ben Simmons wasn't that bad. Lonzo Ball isn't that bad. Brandon Ingram developed into a nice player. So now, Nick, you're going from teams, the bar has been lowered. The bar has been put to a point where teams can rationalize the tanking, and that's why you just got to rip the whole thing out. You got to literally just pull the rug out, kill the foundation, and get rid of any incentive for tanking.
Well, that's another thing as we live in today's NBA and today's basketball world. These guys are coming out at 20 years old, and it's going to take them a couple years to be high-level players, the ones that do pan out, right? Like, it's going to take them age 21, age 22, age 23, 24 to start developing into a superstar if they do hit on one of these players, right, at the top of the draft. So you have the years of being bad to get the pick, and then you have the years of developing the players after the pick. So it's just elongated for years and years and years before they become even close to a contender. So I see why the NBA wants to have this knocked off, because you are waiting all these years and you're not putting a product out there that is suitable for the NBA fan to go out and buy a ticket for. Like, well, why would I pay this much money if the team's going to stink for how many years while you're trying to go through your process? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just getting to the point where it's just very frustrating. It's just very frustrating that you have a situation where there probably is a solution that everyone can agree on, but nobody wants to actually have the conversation because it's like the blind men and the elephant story where everyone's walking around telling me what an elephant is, but because they're all blind, they're only telling me part of the elephant. So it's like I don't really want to take anyone seriously because Ishbia, Silver, whoever wants to speak up, they're all part of the problem.
Yep, that's how it is. And I don't know how quickly this will get fixed, but, man, the NBA has a few things to fix, to say the least, over the next couple of years. All right, 2-pack for you on the road there, Josh, for the Nuggets.
Well, you gave me a 2-pack, so I got one for you because we got a couple of minutes left here in the segment. So
okay.
Louis Riddick was on NFL Live yesterday. I don't know if you heard this audio. And he basically sounds like he is over all of the A.J. Brown Eagles drama. Take a listen to Louis Riddick yesterday on NFL Live.
There's just too much, well, this is what we want. This is what ideally we'd like to have. We're not in the business of getting rid of, quality players, premium top-line players. Well, of course not. We all know that. We all know that you'd like to have good players. But what we all know also is that there is something in terms of fit, chemistry, culture, whatever word you want to put on this, that just is not working here. That it's constantly every week, once you get into the, really the depth of the season with Philadelphia, that this relationship between this player and this organization, this player and the quarterback, this player and the head coach, whatever it is, just seems to always be in a state of turmoil.
Sounds like to me that it's not just Eagle fans who are frustrated with all this drama, Nick.
Well, it's just back and forth all the time. He's going to be back. Actually, he might not be back. He's asking for a trade. We want him back. The Eagles love good players. I mean, it's just all over the place. And I think people are just tired of the whole entire charade here with everything that's going on. Like, dude, go out there and be truthful. Do you want to be here or not? You're under contract. You're getting paid a lot of money. Like, do you want to be here or not? Like, is it going to be able to work or no? And it's really that simple, man. Like, he's doing all this. We're doing all this extra stuff with the AJ thing, all these different reports. Sirianni and Howie are going out there. They love him. We want to keep him. It's getting ridiculous. So I get where Lewis is coming from.
I'm just glad somebody said who wasn't us.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time ad nauseum. Finally, someone on the national stage said it.
All right, Nick. Well, be safe as you go to your assignment, and we'll talk soon.
I will. I paid a cash toll again today, by the way. All in on cash tolls. Bring back cash tolls. I'll talk to you guys.
Or we should just get rid of tolls.
I agree with that, too.
See you, Nick. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill in the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I say get rid of all tolls because of the fact that, so for those who don't know, I'm not trying to get deep into the weeds here, but for those who might not be old enough, or maybe those of you who are old enough who don't remember, the purpose of the tolls was supposed to pay for the initial building of the Parkway and Expressway. It was never meant to continually be an inflation rising, money-making system for the state. So, to me, the fact that we're still paying for these tolls, I just am not a fan. You're telling me that you can't take care of these roads without docking me $2.40 to drive through the toll? I mean, half the reason why I drove on the Parkway this past week was because half the roads were stuck with ice. And now you're smacking me for $2.40 because I'm trying to get home? Trying to be safe? I gotta go to my job. I gotta go home from my job. Slap me in the face with $2.40. New Jersey should be ashamed of themselves. More Sixers talk next. Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers joins me. Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill. 97.3 ESPN.
Home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City.
Five o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. And Seagull streaming live on YouTube and X as heard here on 97.3 ESPN. The Sixers have now won 2 games straight, and Joel Embiid made a cameo appearance. I obviously say that a bit tongue-in-cheek to get more into the state of the Sixers after winning 2 straight after what was a miserable couple weeks for the 76ers. Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. First of all, Paul, I like that Phillies hat you got there.
I appreciate that. It's one of my favorites. I think it's a spring training hat from years ago, and it's like a little bit of that dry fit material. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's one of those throwbacks. I like that. They should probably bring that back to the stupid City Connects.
Well, the City Connects grew on me a little bit, but I definitely get why people don't love them necessarily, for sure.
I hate them. There's no growing for me. I put my flag in the ground, and I am the enemy of all City Connects for all. I don't think there's a good City Connect out there in baseball, honestly.
Wow, that's bold. Okay.
Yeah, I'm that guy, but it's okay. But back to the 76ers. Yeah, so the Sixers won the game last night, but the problem, Paul, is that Joel Embiid makes a cameo appearance. And, there was a party that was wondering, is Joel going to play? When he's going to come back? And then all of a sudden it was, hey, Joel's back. So, Paul, I ask you, is he back? Or is it to be determined?
Well, I think with Joel Embiid, we never say anything definitively in any circumstance, especially when it comes to injury. Now, look, he's dealing with a stress reaction in his shin. That's no joke. That's not something you want to mess with. So if it's causing him pain, if it's an issue, you want him to rest, because a stress reaction could turn into a stress fracture very quickly. And if that happens, he might not be coming back from that this season. So it's just another thing you got to add to it. And look, he was having, there's no secret to this. He was having soreness and swelling in his right knee. And so then he has the stress reaction in his shin, clearly, because he's compensating for the knee injury. So,
right.
So I think, he didn't play for 2.5 weeks. I imagine that rested him a lot of good. I will say this, Josh, we all know this. When Joel Embiid comes back from long layoffs, he generally does not look very good. He did not look like he missed a game last night. He looked terrific. I mean, he looked like his rhythm was there. Him and Tyrese Maxey, their chemistry, it's like they never stopped playing with each other. I mean, granted, I get it. The Pacers stink. They had their injury list is like a CVS receipt. It's outrageous. I get all that. But the way he looked good. So that's very encouraging. I would anticipate he plays again Thursday night against Miami at home. If he doesn't, some alarm bells are going to go off for me, because then I wonder, to your point, is this going to be he's going to be able to play again? Look, because for January, he didn't miss any games that weren't back-to-backs, right? He played in every single game he was supposed to play in. The back-to-backs, which they've already said he will not play in, those are the only games he missed. So we'll see. I mean, kind of like you alluded to, it's all exacerbated because of the losing, because of the All-Star break in between. It's just a lot of bad taste in a lot of people's mouths over that. But we'll see. I mean, that's it. Unfortunately, with Joel Embiid, that's the deal. It's going to be a we'll see situation. But when he has taken the court this year, at least recently, he's looked very good.
Yeah, and I think that, the Embiid situation, we're obviously going to be continuing monitoring it. It's just the part of the thing for me, Paul, is, and I know this will never change. So I know I'm saying something that it doesn't matter if you say it, I say it, whoever says it, it's not going to change. I just wish there would be a little bit more transparency. I know there's never been with the Sixers. It's either just tell us what's going on or just tell us lower body injury.
Well, I'll say this, because listen, I have been as hard on them as anybody over the years about the lack of transparency and all this kind of will he, won't he, and here we are sitting here, he's listed as probable, and then they tell us right before he's warming up, he's out now. There has been a lot less of that this year, so that's been nice. They've been kind of getting out in front of it and saying, hey, he's not going to play. Hey, he's questionable because he might actually, so that, and they've been pretty transparent with the shin issue. It popped up during the All-Star break. And since then, they've said, Nick Nurse was kind of asked point blankly, hey, if this were a playoff game, would he play? And Nick Nurse said, yeah, he probably would play if this was a playoff game. And I tend to think that that's the truth. And in reality, Josh, I get it. I get the frustration, but he missed 4 games. It's not like he missed a month. He missed 4 games. So I get the frustration. It's always going to be frustrating because, and I think this year it's less about a lack of transparency and more about we are going to make sure this guy is right before we put him on a basketball court, because we've seen what happens when that's not the case. So I think this year it's more about being cautious, whereas previous years it was more about a lack of transparency and perhaps a kind of lack of continuity, if you will, between him, the medical people, the front office, on up. So I think this year everyone's more on the same page. And so I think if anything, it's just more frustrating because nobody knows. Even Joel Embiid, I think at times isn't quite sure what's going to happen.
So Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers, the editor-in-chief, joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling from Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN at Paul Hudrick on the X platform. The other side was frustrating. You and I have talked about this before, which is when Joel Embiid isn't on the court, what are the other guys doing? And so full transparency, Paul, I got a buddy of mine from high school. I don't want to call him out on the radio, but the guy texts me after every Sixers game for the last 10 years that fail. Okay? Just letting you know. I got the one guy who's always texting me. His latest complaint is, why is Dominic Barlow starting? So I ask you, Paul Hudrick, why is Dominic Barlow starting?
Because he's a good basketball player. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, he doesn't score, but you don't need him to score because that's what you have the other guys for. Dominic Barlow is a really good rebounder. He's a really good if you watched games recently, the ones that stand out, the Atlanta game, Jalen Johnson, he had 30 points. He shot 42% from that game. He earned every single one of those 30-something points. Dominic Barlow was really impressive in that game. And then I'm struggling to remember Zion, they lost that game against the Pelicans, but he matched up really well against Zion. He is a really good defensive player. He's a smart cutter, a good screen setter. He is a little things guy on a team that never has little things guys, right? They don't have these types of players. So, to me, Dom Barlow's and I didn't write it. Other people, someone else on my site, Sean Kennedy, wrote it. He was the unsung hero for the first half of this team. There are plenty of games that they would not have won if Dom Barlow was not starting. Now, is Dom Barlow going to start when Paul George comes back? Maybe, maybe not. But I just think, too, and then the other thing is with Joel Embiid, Barlow is almost perfect. The only thing he can't do is shoot because Dominic Barlow will get rebounds because we all know Joel Embiid has struggled with rebounding since he's, with all the injuries flaring up. He's a really good cutter, which, again, really benefits Joel Embiid. He's more of a screener and roller, which Joel Embiid isn't. He actually looked pretty good doing it last night, but in general, Joel Embiid's not a very great screener and roller. So, I just think he fills gaps. He does the little things. He hunts down loose balls. He is the exact type of player you want when you have superstars on your team.
Yeah, I think the frustration is maybe it's less about, and I don't want to speak for him, I think it's less about Barlow. It's more about the fact that something that I've talked about a lot previously, Paul, which is the supporting cast for this team as a whole is not great. And then the utilization of those parts. Why don't we get more Dembona, for example? I think the Dembona was plus 20 or whatever last night. And then Drummond came and they're minus 15 or whatever. It's obvious that one guy is a more impactful guy, especially defensively, than the other. And you have these moments where Drummond, if he doesn't have a good defensive, possession, right? He kind of just lollygags down the floor. And now it's 4-on-5 because Drummond's taking 10 years to walk down the court. And sometimes you want that energy from Bona. And it's why do I need Drummond on the floor?
Yeah. Look, I think for the most part, Drummond, let's put it I'll go start from the beginning. Drummond to start the season was actually very good. He has not been good over the last, 20 or so games. That's just factual. Adem Bona has been the better player. And I think it's been reflective in the minutes. I mean, I think when you go back and look, for the most part, Adem Bona has gotten the backup 5 minutes when Joel Embiid has played. And then on the nights when it's him and Drummond, he has played more than Drummond for the most part. I think there are times where Nick Nurse gets frustrated with Bona when he's not doing quote unquote Bona things, when he's not contesting every shot at the rim, when he's not active on the glass, those types of things. Now, to me, I'll agree with you on this part. I do not care if Adem Bona struggles. Adem Bona needs to play basketball because the only way he's going to get better, he's a second-year player. He needs to play. So to me, I'll give you that. I think that's one aspect where I think Nick Nurse, it's a little bit of a blind spot for him where it's like, I get he's, it's his job. He's trying to win basketball games, but at the same time, you got to develop a Adem Bona. You have to develop a Jared McCabe, and that's a whole nother story. You have to develop young guys, and you have to live with it sometimes. Because that's the only way these guys are the only way you're going to get Adem Bona ready to make an impact in the playoffs is to play him right now, play him in high leverage situations against high level competition. If you don't do that, then he's not going to be ready for those moments. But I do think that's a fair contention of Nick Nurse. And I do think, I would agree their depth is not great. I don't think Barlow is part of that problem for me. I think Barlow has been one of their 6 best players, pretty consistently all year long. And I think when you look at the playoff rotation, the starters are going to be who they are. Then you have Barlow, you have Grimes, and you have Bona off the bench. It's not bad, but they could use more. And they could, frankly, shooting is their biggest issue. They do not have enough shooting on this basketball team. Unless Grimes is hot, unless Edgecombe is hot, unless they get Paul George back, there's just not enough.
Speaking of Paul George, you kind of went to my next question for you because the whole Paul George part of this, we're obviously still a month away from Paul George's return, as with the way the team is playing, and, they're not going to win every game. We already know that. So I'm not, anyone who thinks they win every game, please share what you're taking because I need some in my life. I need some of that crazy positive energy. But, still, when Paul George does come back, you got to figure out what his role is in all of this. And you mentioned, well, if Barlow is one of your better players, right, you're getting contributions from different guys off the bench. How does Paul George fit into the grand scheme of things?
Well, I think what's nice about Paul George, listen, you don't want any guy to be out for this many games. And, especially a guy who is such a key part of your team. I think defensively is where they've missed him the most. And I think it's where they're going to continue to miss him the most until he comes back. But I think what's nice about Paul George's game is it is pretty adaptable. You can kind of just plunk him in and he'll make an open three. He'll give you good defensive minutes that's the absolute lowest bar, and that he can hit that. Whereas if you're missing a guy like Joel Embiid, that changes everything, right? You have to change everything about your approach if Joel Embiid is not playing. And I would argue the same with Tyrese Maxey with his speed and his shooting. If he's not playing, that changes everything about your offense. With Paul George, that's not the case. He can just fill in, be a third, fourth option, behind, some nights behind Edgecombe even. So I think he can fit in pretty nicely. The silver lining, you hope, is that all this time off helps that knee, and it feels even better by the time he comes back. It's going to be 10 games. One of those games is a back-to-back, so you might not see him in the last game of the season. But 9 games, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tricky to kind of assimilate him back. It's not going to be easy, but I would say of all the players to be missing for this long of a time and to feel like you can get him back in the fold, Paul George isn't the worst guy because of those factors, because he's a veteran. He's played the game. He's been around a minute. He knows what to do. It's not going to be easy, but at the same time, I think they can do it. I think it can be done. I think Paul George can make a meaningful contribution to this team, if and when they make the playoffs.
Well, the other side of it, Paul Hudrick joining us from Liberty Ballers here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. There might be another side of the coin, which is Paul George missing time might benefit them making a playoff run because now Paul George is returning with fresh legs. And it's not fresh legs from an injury. It's fresh legs from something that has nothing to do with his body, his age, it has something completely else to do with. He took something, he should have taken it. All right, we move on. Well, when he comes back, if you're hanging on to that 6 or 5 seed, now you're entering the postseason with a Paul George that probably got the freshest legs he's had in, years?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the kind of rosy outlook you can have on that. Because it could. I mean, it's a pros and cons thing. I mean, it could be that scenario you're talking about where he comes back. I mean, he's still practicing with the team. He's still allowed to do that. He's been running with the scout team, which I'm sure he's given them some pretty good looks from that perspective. But that's a way to keep him fresh without overtaxing him, to your point, so that he will be healthy and ready to roll for those last 9 games and rolling into the playoffs. And it's an interesting element that he adds to the team, and he's going to be a guy they're going to count on in a big way. Again, especially defensively. So you hope those fresh legs make it so that he can hit an open shot, can maybe, take the occasional drive to the basket, make the occasional good pass on the offensive end, and then defense just kind of do what he's been doing. And that's, play really good off ball, give them some pretty decent on ball minutes. A fresh Paul George is better than a not fresh Paul George. So I mean, it could be a nice added benefit. And it's also too, right now with him out, it's giving VJ Edgecombe more opportunities. It's giving Quentin Grimes more opportunities. So while those guys can kind of flourish a little bit with some more time on the ball, and then that could also be the tricky part of assimilating it all. So I certainly think there are pros and cons to look at it from any perspective. But you're right. If they hold on to that 6th or 5th seed, that's a team that, if you're the 3 seed, you're not going to want to play the Sixers as a 6 seed in round 1, no matter who you are. Maybe Cleveland, because that's a really tough matchup for the Sixers. But other than that, I mean, that's a team you probably don't want to see as a 6 seed.
Well, the one thing is Cleveland, they're basically tied with the Knicks. Knicks just have a tiebreaker over them at this point. So, Cleveland could vault up to the 2 seed almost within a week. With the way the NBA fluctuates. The deal with the Sixers is, though, to your point about we want to stay in that 6-5 range because of the fact that you're only a half a game ahead of Orlando. You're, 1.5 games ahead of the Miami Heat. So you got to keep pace if you want to maintain that spot, because I don't think there's any scenario where the 76ers want to go into a play-in situation, especially with some of these scrappy teams, because, oh, by the way, you just lost to the Hawks recently.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to play the Charlotte Hornets as the 10. Although I will say this, Josh, if it's a situation where the Sixers are the 7 seed playing at home and they play the Charlotte Hornets, there is zero excuse for them to lose that game. Now, they could. They absolutely could, because the Hornets are pretty dangerous, and they're young, and they're flying around. So it's possible. But, man, in a 1-game playoff scenario, if they don't take care of business against the Charlotte Hornets, and they don't deserve to be in the playoffs anyway. But, yeah, of course, you want that guaranteed spot. You want to get in. You want that week off for Joel Embiid to rest up, for Tyrese Maxey, the league leader in minutes, to rest up, for VJ Edgecombe, a rookie, to rest up. You want that. The only guy that won't want that time off is probably Paul George. So, you'd rather, of course, if you can get that 6 seed, and that's the delicate balance of what you're doing right now with Joel Embiid, right? Because you need him to play enough to where you can keep winning games. And that's to me, too, Josh, something you brought up with respect to Andre Drummond. It's really disappointing that they brought in no upgrade to the backup 5 position. The Atlanta Hawks got Jock Landale for free. Would you rather see him than Andre Drummond, on most nights? Probably, to be really honest with you. So it's a little disappointing that they didn't find kind of a resolution there. But yeah, they need to find the balance with Joel Embiid, but then also they have to rediscover kind of their mojo when Joel Embiid is not playing. And that goes, that's from Tyrese Maxey on down. All these guys need to figure out how they can play better when Joel is not there, so that they can maintain this, because it's pretty crucial that they maintain this 6 seed or even get, bump up a little higher.
Another guy who may have looked good is that Jose Alvarado, if you got him instead of the Knicks.
Well, and you also would have screwed the Knicks in that case too, so that would have been a win-win. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy.
We're just a couple of guys on the radio here on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers are back in action tomorrow night. You hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. He's Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers editor-in-chief at Paul Hudrick on the X platform. And we thank you, Paul, for joining us here on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash.
You got it, Josh. Anytime, man.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. We will check back in on the text board on the other side. 609-403-0973. It's the White Horse RV text board. Yes, White Horse RV Centers in Williamstown and Galloway. White Horse RV Center, your adventure starts here. And for many of us who have been living without electricity, apparently I at least AC electricity, I got mine back. But still, after the kind of week we have had, we all need an adventure to get away from this place. You know, what was the song? You know, I'm going to get out of this place, the last thing I ever do. White Horse RV Center can help you do that. White Horse RV Centers again in Williamstown and Galloway. And they sponsor our text board, 609-403-0973. We got text coming in from Ray in EHT, Mark in EHT, James in Delaware. More text and more. And you can join the conversation, 609-403-0973.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Every choice you make matters. Whether you're dining out, grabbing takeout from your favorite local spot, or shopping for that perfect outfit at a neighborhood boutique, you're giving back to your community. It's not just about supporting businesses, it's about strengthening connections and keeping your community vibrant. Town Square Media South Jersey is proud to shine a spotlight on local businesses that make our area special.
Jenkins Plumbing and Heating. Call Jenkins for heating and air conditioning installation, service and maintenance, plumbing, or drain cleaning service. Visit JenkinsPlumbingandHeating.com. Apex East Roofing. Get a price on your roof in 30 seconds at ApexEastRoofing.com. First Bank of Sea Isle, Cape May County's community bank. Filling Marble and Tile Outlet on Philadelphia Avenue in Egg Harbor City. Check them out now for their tile sale. Bridgeton Auto Mall, your hometown dealership. Family owned and proudly serving South Jersey for over 50 years.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses from Town Square Media, South Jersey.
We have the perfect solution for sitting in traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
.528 on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, Philly for Mike Gill. 97.3 ESPN FM. 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. Hoping to have Mike Gill back on the Sports Bash tomorrow. That's at least the working plan here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, I will say, in today's world, with the way travel goes and weather, and I mean, look at here in South Jersey. That storm was done by early to mid Monday morning, right? We had people like myself who didn't get power back at their house until, an hour and a half ago? So if that could happen in South Jersey, I'm sure that if Mike Gill got, a flight delay somewhere along the way, I would be less than even remotely surprised. All right, let's get some more text coming in on the text board. As promised, the Whitehorse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. That is text board to join the conversation. Some texts have been coming in throughout the last hour and change I wanted to hit on. Mark in EHC says, I am a doctor, and I've also been a patient when it comes to injuries, and I can tell you exactly why Joel has something that would be considered electricity running down his leg. Guess it could be a sciatica. More commonly, it is a disc problem in the back. It feels like electricity shooting down the leg. I know from multiple operations I have had, says Mark in EHC. Well, Dr. Mark, I will say a couple things. One, it's weird because one report says electricity shooting down his leg. Another one said what Paul Hudrick said, that there's some stress in the shin itself. And listen, the only reason why I go to sciatica and I go to, because I've also had some back issues myself over the years, and I know for me that you're right, it can be a disc, it can be sciatica. It can be a lot of things. The only reason why I'm not going to the back, because I don't want to alarm anyone. So just to remind everybody, so years ago, Joel Embiid had a pretty serious back issue. And he hasn't really had many back problems since. So I'm hoping that it's not a back problem, because that means we have another thing to worry about with Joel. So that's why I'm leaning less into that theory and more into maybe the reporting wasn't exactly correct. And maybe it's less of a shooting pain down his leg and more of again, the new reporting that is out there, which is, he's got some, stress pain on the point where the knee and the shin meet, which from what I understand, I did not go to medical school, but I do think that there is very strong possibility that, for all intents and purposes, that, Joel just, may have trained too hard or overdid or something like that. So, but I don't want to get too excited about, knee this, back that, because of the fact that now we're all worried about Joel Embiid's back. But I appreciate you chiming in, Dr. Mark, on the text board. The White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Ray and EHT chimes says, hey, Josh, I like a Dem bonus, high energy, high velocity, high everything. If he get his energy situation under control, and maybe he wasn't so out of control, he would be a really good backup for Joel. He just needs to kind of get himself under control at times. And I also think last night proved that this team is completely different when Joel is on the floor. I argue with my friend all the time about why he doesn't play. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. So you're basically saying that, the issue is that, it's not that Joel Embiid doesn't want to play. It's that he's not allowed to play because of the team doctors. And you're 100% right. Joel Embiid is not playing because he's trying to send a message or something like that. No, he's not playing because of the fact that he's being told there's a problem here. Let me see here. Where's the comment from Drew Hanlon? Here it is. Let me Sorry to find it. So Drew Hanlon, we played this audio last week. So Drew Hanlon was on the Kevin O'Connor podcast on Yahoo Sports and talked about, saying that, Joel used to play through injuries and now he no longer does. Here's Drew Hanlon from that podcast.
People panic. They're like, Joel Embiid's out, and they're like texting me, and he's like, oh no, is he seriously hurt? I'm like, no, he's just not 100%. And so he's not going to push his body to a place where he has in the past. And, in the past, people have no idea. People know all the surgeries. People know all the injuries. People have no idea the amount of pain that he's played through just to try to give his team a chance to win.
I think that's the part of the conversation that not all, but a certain group of Sixer fans, they just don't want to hear it. They want to have nothing to do with it. They just want to be critical and have no critical thinking about Joel Embiid. There's a contingent of people who keep wanting to say, Joel is lazy, Joel's a bum, he doesn't practice and train hard enough. And it's like, this dude played with Bell's palsy. This dude has played through broken faces, multiple injuries. That's not lazy. If you want to say he has limitations, okay, we can work with that. Find me anyone who's 7'2". They're going to have some limitations in terms of what they can and can't do. Find me anyone who has had multiple foot surgeries, multiple knee injuries, multiple back injuries, multiple broken faces, multiple problems, who doesn't have limitations. So, Ray and HC, you're right. These people, they're critical for the sake of being critical. They're not critical because they're actually thinking. There's no critical thinking for some of these people. It's just, he stinks. I can't stand him. He's a bum. When if you had the same person who's complaining about Joel Embiid go through the things that Joel Embiid has gone through, I guarantee 9 out of 10 of those people would be laid up on their couch complaining about how much pain they're in. The Dembona thing, I agree with Paul Hudrick, Ray and EHT. I think that Dem needs more playing time. He's not going to get better. He's not going to evolve into the backup that Joel Embiid needs if he's just not playing and he's sitting behind. I think looking back at the deadline, I think the Sixers were so intent on trying to make a certain kind of move that they overlooked the fact they could have made some moves. And so then they walk out of the deadline with a thin backcourt, a glut in the front court. They have an imbalanced roster right now. And, Nick Nurse has this weird rotation pattern that he loves to put Andre Drummond in the games when he probably shouldn't be in there. And it's in part because he's impatient with the dem bonus development. And I would argue that a dem bonus development being what it is in part a reflection of how Nick Nurse and the Sixers utilize him. So it becomes a chicken or the egg argument. I tend to believe in the fact that, again, my opinion is that if a dem played more, he would have the opportunity to evolve and develop into a better player and be the player you need him to be. I tend to agree with Paul Hudrick on this. More text coming in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Again, we are talking about the Sixers right now. They are back in action tomorrow night versus the Miami Heat, 7 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. Tonight on 97.3 ESPN, the Flyers turn to the ice versus the Capitals. If you missed my conversation with Bob Wischusen about the NHL returning for the Olympics, you can hear that during the Best of the Sports Bash coming up in the next hour. Bob will be on the call for the Flyers-Bruins game Saturday at 3 p.m. on ABC. And, of course, if you miss any of the Sports Bash, the Sports Bash, every episode right now is being streamed on the 97.3 YouTube channel. You could also catch it on the X platform and also on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and podcasting form. And, yes, I am Josh Hennig, and Mike Gill will be returning tomorrow for the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Dan EHT says, it is what it is with the Sixers in the Embiid areas. They are just not good enough. The best shot they have was the year with Butler, and they got beat by a triple doink by the Claw, Kawhi Leonard. It's hard to believe it's been 40 to 50 years for the Flyers and Sixers championships. A couple things there, Dan. One, I agree that the best chance they had was the Butler, Harris, J.J. Redick, Embiid, Simmons team. But I think that the Hawks series was another series they could have won and they should have won. And it's really just a debate about which is more frustrating. You know, when they lost to the Raptors, that was a series where it felt like half the team didn't show up, right? You know, Joel Embiid and all of his, GI tract issues or accusations he was basically eating slop before the games. Jimmy Butler, he didn't really have a great series at all. So you had that dynamic to deal with. I just feel like that this is a team that we look fondly on that series because people love Jimmy Butler. But I would argue that the loss to the Hawks, what year was it? Was just as bad. What year was the Hawks series? Here it is. So it's 2021. That series I go back to personally because they had multiple opportunities to win in that series. You know, if Ben Simmons makes a few free throws, right? That series would have gone into the conference finals. You know, when they lost some of those games, they lost them very close. It wasn't like the Hawks were dominating them each and every game in that series, or the Sixers were, completely hot and cold. It was literally a few plays here, a few plays there go differently. You win that series. And if you go back and remember, the Hawks lost to the Milwaukee Bucks that year in the conference finals. The Sixers were probably a better matchup for that Milwaukee Bucks team than the Hawks were. So there's a legitimate scenario that it's not just the Toronto Raptors 7-gamer, but the the Hawks 7-gamer. You could have had two opportunities to get to the conference finals in the last several years, and you didn't do it. And to me, I keep going back to the reality that, guess what? This organization has fumbled opportunities in terms of roster building, in terms of on-the-court success. And so, to me, I'm not going to let them off the hook. I'm not going to dismiss it. The 40, 50-year thing, that's hard to quantify, Dan, EHC, because on paper, it looks like that, you're missing all this time. But in reality, there have been way more opportunities for the Sixers and the Flyers to have chances to win a championship, not just within the last several years. The Flyers have multiple chances in the 1980s and 1990s to win championships. The Sixers, if they would have constructed their roster a little differently for the year they went to the NBA Finals with Allen Iverson, that team might have been a better chance to win a championship somewhere in that window. So, to me, it's not just the Joel Embiid era. It's a lot of different eras that have been a disappointment in Philadelphia sports. Keep this coming in, 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Coming up on the other side, we will wrap up the 5 o'clock hour. Plus, I'll give you my parting thoughts on the Flyers' return to the ice. There is something specific I want to see from the orange and the black coming up this week. They got 3 games right out of the break. Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and another one on Monday. The NHL trade deadline is a few weeks away. There's something specific I want to see from the orange and the black coming out of the break. I'll tell you what that is next. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on a Wednesday edition. Happy Hump Day, everybody. 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
$5.50 on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. One more final segment on a Hump Day Wednesday edition on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, a serious thank you to everybody who joined me, obviously for the last couple weeks, filling in for Mike Gill, all of you who have tuned in through it all. Of course, today's guest, thanks to Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers, Nick Earnshaw on his way assignment on Nick's Nuggets, Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast and Philly Voice, Bob Wischusen from ESPN. He'll be on the call for the Flyers game on Saturday. Flyers and Bruins on ABC. Of course, you hear the Flyers and Bruins game Saturday at 3 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks also to Jeff Kerr, Phillies insider, and Press Atlantic City's Mike McGarry for joining me. Flyers are back in action tonight. Orange and the black. Puck drops at 7 p.m. There is one thing that I cannot wait to see tonight, and that is I'm really hoping that this Olympic break was more than just we need Mishkov to hit the reset button. I really hope that what we see tonight is going to be the whole team looking like they finally found their sea legs again. Because this team seriously looked like, for about the last month of games before the break, they just ran out of steam, they ran out of gas, they ran out of energy, they ran out of focus at times. And I got to tell you, to me, I look at the big picture of this team. To me, it's more than just Mishkov coming out, being more focused, being more prepared, ready to go. It's about guys like Couturier and Konechny being re-engaged and energized. It's about guys like Sanheim doing what he did last year, taking the positive that he got from the Four Nations, carrying it back to the team. It's about guys like Jamie Drysdale, refocusing on what he needs to do well. It's a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen and Dan Vladar taking their Olympic experience positives and bringing it to the team. I want to see this whole team come out tonight and play a Capitals team that some people may think is supposed to beat them, and just, lean into that energy. Don't be the team that treats the Olympic break like it's still happening. Get off the bus and get going quickly from the very, very beginning. And so that's what I'm looking for. I want to see a level of energy that we saw back in October, November, and early December with the Flyers. That's what I hope to see tonight. And well, it will depend on them. Now, look, if they win the game tonight, but they lose it tomorrow night, I understand that. Back-to-back games in any sport, even if it is the Rangers tomorrow night, that's going to be tough. The Rangers may have one of the worst records in the NHL, but guys like Mika Zibanejad are still terrors in your nightmares. I mean, Mika Zibanejad almost sent the USA out of the gold medal round in the run, right? So, listen, tonight is a very important game to see what is the actual vibe. What is the actual... Do the Flyers actually want to be a better team or not? All right, thanks again to everybody for listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill is expected to be back in tomorrow. And of course, don't forget, hanging with Hennig every Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.